Hi, who would you like to be in the Naruto universe? Write in the comments.
What are you doing? Asked someone who suddenly approached me. Out of surprise, I interrupted the 386th circle and already jumped to the side for 5 meters, and only then I saw the approacher. A strange shinobi in black clothes with blue elements and with a vest. Behind his back was a katana of not the largest size, his hips were wrapped in white bandages, for which a small pouch was also hooked. He had on some kind of vest, different from those that I've seen on Jonins. His skin on the palms and face was open, but at the same time eerily white, as if he had never been under the sun, and the strangest thing was emotions. There were almost none. I listened, dispersing my sense of emotions to the maximum, and only then could I feel a faint echo of emotions that indicated that he was satisfied and pleased with something. How? I don't know, alas, but I can read emotions and feelings, but not thoughts and memory. I'm training, can't you see? I asked in response, collecting my thoughts. What are you doing here, shinobi uncle, watching the little boys? I stumbled upon you by chance while walking in the woods. It became interesting, so I looked. So why do you have such weird workouts? You don't practice martial arts at all. Strength, agility, endurance, speed, reaction. All this trains, but not your fighting skills. Why don't you do it? The shinobi asked me. At that time, I noticed more and more details in his appearance. Probably the training for attentiveness was not in vain. His skin is too pale, but with some movements, a tan line is visible between the hand and the rest of the arm. Weak, barely noticeable, but it was, which indicates that he can sunbathe, but for a very long time he was either in clothes that completely covered all the skin, or he was in a dark room without leaving it, for an equally long time. The second version seems more likely, because it is unrealistic to wear such clothes all the time. Even shinobi have their limits, even if they are constantly shifting. And since he was in a permanently closed room, he could not get even such a weak, but already noticeable tan line. Since he had turned so pale during his time indoors, it must have had a purpose. But then they let him out. He walked for a couple of days under the sun in the same or very similar clothes and then suddenly stumbled upon me. His emotions are strange too. He seems to be deprived of them. No, they are, but they are very weak, inconspicuous, dull and primitive. I feel the same emotions in some animals, but those animals, not people. Oh, it all smells weird. Coincidence or not? I think our dialogue will be able to show this, as well as his goals in communicating with me, if any, of course, because I don't know how to train it. Here they help me to make a workout, individually for me, for my features. But no one individually composed taijutsu for me, and everything that they can teach me does not suit me. Therefore, I primarily work on physical indicators. You know, the level of body development that you showed is above the level of a genin, about an average chunin, or even strong. But your taijutsu skills are completely untrained. Oh, thank you for such an obvious thing. I myself did not understand this at all. That's pretty dumb. What are you leading to? I asked in the forehead. To nothing. But if you want, in my free time I could train you in this direction. But it's up to you, but be aware that without good taijutsu you won't become a strong shinobi. As if by chance he emphasized the last words of the shinobi. And he hit the nail on the head. But I'm not a moron, at least I hope so, because I understand that all this is somehow and by someone specially rigged. This became especially noticeable at the moment when I asked him directly. Albeit weakly, but anxiety and a little irritation began to appear in his feelings. He was worried that I began to get annoyed and in a fit of emotions I could refuse, pride would jump up or the like. Togura-senpai told me about the hormonal system, and I know that at my age, it's normal to show sudden changes in personality or a quick change in the direction of emotions. In principle, at some point such a thought really flashed through my mind, but I was crushed by the prospect of gaining more power. Great, then I'll be glad to learn from you. Shall we start now or later? I asked. The shinobi nodded and his face slowly became completely emotionless as he began my training. 10 minutes later he was training me with a completely emotionless and pale face. I left after 2 hours. The workout was not as exhausting as circuit training, as I call it, but it was rewarding. From that moment on, everything went like this. My new sensei, who never introduced himself, trained me not only for physical parameters, they, as he said, are simply wonderful for my age. Instead, sensei taught me stances, proper punches, moves, connections, techniques. The training went well and quickly, because after a 3-hour training session with him, he went somewhere, and I repeated everything that had been passed over and over again, only starting to do circuit training in the late evening. I returned home at night and went to bed even later. Soon I realized that I was not getting enough sleep again, so I had to slightly change the daily routine and do everything in such a way as to adjust everything to the comings and goings of Sensei and the academy. Between them, I tried to arrange everything compactly. For the whole month, I stubbornly mastered all the new stances and movements, practiced them until I was satisfied, and then went to sparring with Sasuke, and there I fixed it all and turned it into experience. Sasuke soon noticed that my movements became more systematized and congratulated me on finding a teacher, after which he asked who he was. I couldn't give a name, for obvious reasons, but instead I described to him everything I had come to in my thoughts about Sensei and all my observations. Sasuke nodded at first, and then went into the room. Along the way, I managed to notice surprise, awareness/understanding, as well as determination in his feelings. What did he think that such emotions flickered in his feelings? Commentary on Part 20. There was no fish, but I still spread it. Happy reading and all the best. I hope you enjoy the chapter. I want to say that all fanfic will go only on behalf of GG and there will be no POV. The fact that something will or will not happen does not mean that it did not happen. Most likely Naruto simply does not know about it or does not understand something, does not notice or did not notice, and so on. In short, the whole FIC goes like a narration of what and how GG himself perceives. There will be no inserts from another person to clarify the situation. Thanks to everyone who reads and especially to those who sponsor me. Even though it's not necessary, I'll post continuations anyway. It's another matter that when a message arrives that an erase 23500 rubles have been transferred to your card, it really was, this forces you to will or unwillingly take it on and write a new chapter, because otherwise it's just somehow ashamed, or simply not comfortable in front of readers. In short, it is notably stimulating and makes the brain stir up. Hit the muse with a whip a dozen or 2 times, and start writing. Part 21. Hello cutie. I said cheerfully to Hinata when I met her at the academy. Hi Naruto-kun, don't call me that. On the street, Hinata blushed in embarrassment, giving me a wave of tenderness. Here is Biju, how I like it. Especially her feelings. But you like it when I call you sweetie. Or should I call you beauty? I asked, going up to her and standing very close and smiling with all my teeth. Just Hinata, Naruto, please, when you call me Tak, it's uncomfortable. What if someone sees and hears? Again a wave of embarrassment. Don't care. Whoever says something, I'll punch him in the face. I won't see who it is. Naruto, you don't have to be so cruel just because of other people's words. If they are said in a negative light and in your direction, it's not just necessary, it's almost my duty. Tell me, Hinata, who do you think will be on your team? I changed the topic of conversation. I don't know, but I hope you'll be there. Hinata answered. Yes, I would also prefer to have you in my team. Not only are you a censor and a very dangerous fighter, but you, which is not less, if not more important, are so cute that you can just admire for hours. These words again gave rise to a wave of embarrassment and some joy. Okay, let's go, soon distribution. I said and went to the academy. Hinata followed me. We entered the classroom and sat down at our desks. More precisely, for a desk. Sasuke had already settled down by the window. I sat down next to him and Hinata sat down to my right. Shino was sitting a desk above us behind us. Sitting at the desk and waiting for the teacher Irika, I recalled this entire month since gaining sensei. He turned out to be a good melee fighter and taught me to the conscience. However, I doubt that he cared about his conscience, rather he just taught me well. After my story, the next day, Sasuke told me that his brother, Itachi, once disappeared somewhere. He was not at home for 2 months, and when he returned, he was all pale without tan skin, as it was before, or rather she turned pale. His mom and dad answered Sasuke's questions that he entered a special unit of a certain ANBU. Itachi did not talk about those who work with him, but small reservations in the family circle made it clear that this unit was located somewhere underground and workers, sometimes, were not released from there for years, so everyone turned pale there. And low emotionality is one of the signs of those who work there for a long time. Cause? Sasuke didn't know, but the main question is, why did he find me? Why did you start training and why does it do it so well? Traces of sunburn on the palms and neck, in connection with the new information that he is from some kind of shinobi unit, also secret, apparently, suggests that he spent the few days for which he received those tan lines in the sun, maybe following me. Later this idea was confirmed. Now, when I realized that there are those whom I almost do not feel emotionally, I tuned into a deeper perception of feelings in order to feel such insensitive ones. And the effect appeared immediately. The first thing I noticed was that when the sensei left, two of the same, emotional, shinobi appeared and followed me literally everywhere. The only places where this didn't happen were the Uchiha quarter, the hospital, and the academy. Otherwise, they were constantly next to me. Not too long ago, my chakra hearth and entire circulatory system had evolved enough to sustain the 19th clone all the time, which I did by putting him in chakra sensitivity training. Such training allows shinobi to develop a sense of chakra and to some extent perceive it. Particularly talented ones excelled even higher in this, feeling chakra for tens of kilometers around. There were few of them, but they were. These exercises were simple, but time devoured almost everything. That is, you need to do nothing for a long time, focusing on the chakra and constantly trying to see it a little further. This process is very slow, perception grows literally by millimeters, but almost constantly, during the exercises. And also it greatly strains the brain when dispelling a clone. Very much. Think. For a month, of course, the sensitivity did not increase much. The constant performance of the exercise by the clone allowed me to grow in sensitivity by only 1.5 meters, but the very fact of success pleases me. Graduation from the academy soon approached. It went surprisingly easy. In the written test it was easy, I remember it all. I also passed the throwing test well, with shurikens. In general, everything turned out perfectly. In taijutsu, too, everything was simple. A couple of movements and the enemy lies on the ground outside the circle. I just pushed it out at high speed. The ninjutsu went well. Albeit with a creak, but Iruka-sensei accepted my illusory clone, which at least did not stagger and stood firmly on its feet, even though it was almost white and transparent, but there is an effect. Another half a year would have been given, and it would have been almost impossible to distinguish them in appearance, unless the sensors could do it, even weak ones, which is the main disadvantage of the technology. After that, we were told to arrive at the distribution team at the given time. Here we are, waiting. Sakura and Ino continue to tag along with Sasuke while the others have already fallen behind, although they sometimes give him special looks. Finally, Iruka appeared. We fell silent, deciding to finish something later. Hello children. Today is a special day for you. Iruka-sensei is generally a big talker. Does he rehearse them? However, it doesn't matter. Iruka, although a good teacher, I did not like from the first day. On the very first day of our acquaintance, despite his smiles and good speeches with a friendly smile, I felt his negative emotions directed at me. Over time, something changed. He asked me about everything. He always wanted to show himself to be my friend, especially in the last year, but his feelings speak clearly. He's fucking. Finally, distribution began. Team number 7, Haruno Sakura, Inazuka Kiba, Aburame Shino, Sensei, Kurinai Yuhi. Team number 8, Uzumaki Naruto, Uchiha Sasuke, Hyuga Hinata, Sensei, Hataki Kakashi. S. I whispered quietly and extended my palms to the teammates sitting to the right and left of me now, and they were hit by the same palms from Sasuke and Hinata. When the distribution was over, and everyone began to disperse, we continued the interrupted conversation. During the conversation, time flowed imperceptibly, and when the door opened and a shinobi appeared there was no one left in the classroom. Oh, Sensei, I'm sorry, we didn't notice you right away. Come on. I told him when I noticed a new source of emotion. Commentary on part 21. The new part, probably enough for today. I'll go to the bathhouse. Thanks to everyone who reads. Comment. Summon Beta. 1, 2, 3. Somewhere far away. Apchi. What would it be? Answered. Part 22. Started. Said our new sensei, and all three of us jumped into the bushes, where I immediately took out a bundle of fabric and, grabbing one of the edges, quickly unfolded it, throwing it over all of our three. All of them did not stand and immediately climbed under the fabric. Sat down and I filed chakra into the fabric, merging us with the terrain. This, of course, is unlikely to help against a Jonin at my level of technology, but it's worth a try. Guys, let's think about how we will live. He wants either one of us to sacrifice himself for the rest, or he wants the weakest in our team to be weeded out. I spoke without moving, just like Hinata and Sasuke listened to me. There are no teams with 2 members. But this does not mean that the second option can be ruled out, they may well pick up the missing team member from the outside. Sasuke said, looking at me with only his eyes. What do you think, Hinata? I turned my gaze to her. I agree with Sasuke. She replied. In this case, let's go from the opposite. Hinata, can you beat one of us and take the bells for yourself and the other one left? I immediately asked. No. She answered, turning her head towards me. Fortunately she did not touch the fabric with her head. Then the same question to you, Sasuke. Of course not. He replied, though I caught a momentary uncertainty in my emotions. But he was immediately crushed. In that case, since I am in the same situation, you are too dear to me, only the first option remains and someone needs to sacrifice themselves. It doesn't really matter who does it, anyway, even if Kakashi-sensei makes good on his threat, the one of us who returns to the academy will soon be up and running again. I am the owner of a huge reserve and the best in physical terms. Sasuke is the head of the Uchiha clan. Besides a genius, you, Hinata, are the princess of the strongest Konoha clan at the moment, and this will not be done to you. So anyway, we'll be back in the Genin pretty soon. Naruto, I'll do it. I will help, and then I will refuse the bell. Hinata answered, and listening to her feelings, it becomes clear that for her these words were a real feat. There is so much embarrassment, fear and shyness that I almost began to dissolve in these emotions. No, Hinata, if you do this, then you will avoid problems with the Genin, but in the clan you may start having problems. You said that the attitude towards you is not very good, it's not worth making things worse. This will not bring personal harm to Sasuke, but his reputation can suffer very much because of this, and reputation is important to him, still the last member of the clan. P.F. Here, more and more often this clan trait of theirs began to erupt in him, he will soon forget how to speak, he will only puff and chuckle. So the best option would be me, an orphan, reputation will not suffer, there will be no problems, and the more time I have, the better for me, I will become stronger and faster, control will get better and better, and the arsenal will grow. With your clone army, anyone could develop at such a speed that in just a year there is such a striking difference. In case I forgot, Sasuke, I got them not so long ago, and your remark is somewhat strange, don't you think, the bearer of a miracle I said to Sasuke, whom I really sometimes internally caught feeling envy of my chakra volumes and, accordingly, the number of clones for training. In response, I reminded him of his Sharingan, to which he always answered in the same way. Argument. Okay, any objections? No. Great, now you need to select the bells. Are there any offers? No. In this case, we use the best plan, we improvise and try to help each other without harming. And remember, especially you, Hinata, that this is not a genin, but a full-fledged jonin, you cannot beat him, but you need to hit him with full force, without fear that you will damage him. Moreover, if someone inflicts some significant damage on him, then this is a reason to be proud. Naruto, I think that everyone should not immediately get into close combat with him, Sasuke began. Hinata specializes in close combat and I think she is the one who needs to join him. We help from a distance. I'll give you shurikens, you give me kunai. We have iron and ninjutsu behind us, especially on you. If possible, we help in close combat. Hinata, do you agree? I asked her. Yes. I won't hold back. Nodding gently, she told us. Then let's start. I said. I remove the fabric, destroying the invisibility cloak technique, and immediately create 5 clones, diverging in different directions, after which me, Sasuke and Hinata moved to the sensei. He stood in the middle of the training ground and read some book with one eye, and the rest of his face was covered with a mask and a protector. Fire release, great fireball. Sasuke said as he closed his seal of concentration in seconds and blew out a huge ball of fire that went to sensei, only I felt another source of emotions, similar to the one that Sasuke's ball flies into. Clone. I turn around and create, without words and only with the seal of concentration, a water core that flies at high speed into the foliage of trees, from where the signal of emotions came from. The clone dodged the fireball, but the blast wave caught him and threw him a little farther than where he planned to land. My core didn't hit sensei or his clone as he was much farther away and managed to dodge, but when he jumped out, I sent a dozen unstable water shuriken at him, causing him to dodge again, but I threw more and more shuriken until none of them hit or cut the clone, causing it to disperse into a cloud of chakra. Shadow clone. At that moment, Sasuke was also able, albeit with difficulty, to hit Sensei with one of the Phoenix Flower technique projectiles, and he also disintegrated into a cloud of chakra. At that moment, I felt Sensei's emotions surge right next to us. He wanted to hit me. I noticed his shadow appeared and a hand that moved to hit, but then his hand was knocked down by Hinata's hand, which hit her 8 times, judging by the shadow, with terrifying speed. I noticed something, but I wouldn't be able to dodge everyone. This sensei did not disintegrate into chakra, instead jumping back with his right arm hanging like a whip. At that moment, the kunai thrown by Sasuke flew at him, but Kakashi simply turned around and kicked 2 of them down, the rest hitting the places where Kakashi-sensei could probably jump back. All my clones jumped out of the forest and each fired at a fairly strong Suiton and Katon technique. Kakashi, in order not to get hit by a rather dangerous technique, simply replaced it with a log, which immediately burned down due to a great fireball and then shattered into pieces from a water dragon. The source of the emotion was back in the trees, so me and the clones just fired a water cannonball there, much like Sasuke had fired the kunai earlier. Kakashi moved again, this time without being replaced by a log, but simply disappearing here and appearing elsewhere. Useful technique. Only where he moved were my clones, however, I doubt that he did not know this. He began to destroy the clones one by one with blows, until one of them, on pure control, without words, without seals, pierced his foot with a spike from the water that grew out of the puddle where he stepped. For a moment, Kakashi hesitated at this, apparently not expecting to be so hurt, and then jumped back, almost ignoring the pain. In the place where he got, there were also 3 of my clones. I just didn't feel connected to them. Kakashi either did not notice my thoughtful look, or something else, but struck at the clone, only the blow went through. Illusory clone. Then the other 2 crept up from different sides and went into hand-to-hand combat. And in the next moment, the hands of one of the clones accelerated sharply and dealt the same 8 blows in a second. Hinata. And at the same time, a kunai flew in from the opposite side, which cut off Sensei's bells and they started to fall. A seal of concentration, and from a small puddle next to them, a water tentacle grew, which swallowed them up and seemed to shoot at me. I have already caught them by hand. Ready. Commentary on Part 22. A draft started to bet, so the author's comment was cut off. I will say for him, if someone Zaydenil, thanks. I call myself. 1, 2, 3. Lost text restored. Answered. Readability has been improved. Cat. Part 23. Maybe you should still apologize to Sensei. Hinata asked us. It's my own fault. There was nothing to succumb to and underestimate us so much. Sasuke replied as he continued to eat his plate of ramen. But. Hinata started again. Hinata, calm down. Everything will be fine with him. Knowing the capabilities of the Irionans, especially the good ones, tomorrow there will be no trace of the wound. It's good that you're so kind, it makes you even more cute, but if you keep getting loaded with Kakashi-sensei's injury, you won't have time to eat. Come on, come on. And, following his own words, ran into a plate of ramen. Hinata nodded, sighed and exhaled, calmed down, after which she began to eat. 5 minutes later, she had already caught up with me and finished the first cup. And then, like me, I started the second one. The second one was followed by the third one, then the fourth one, and these are not just cups, but the biggest ones in this shop. After 7 of the same cups, I realized that I was close to the limit, and after 2 more I realized that I couldn't fit anymore, and Hinata the cutie continued to eat cup after cup with an innocent face and terrible speed. I sat, and my eyes were bulging, ready to jump out of their sockets at any moment. The jaw took the lowest possible position, and I turned pale, imagining that I was eating the same amount. Considering that I'm already ill, I turned pale for good reason. Sasuke's expression became the same as mine now, even on our 5th plate with Hinata. Now he was simply out of this world, his soul gone somewhere far, far away. Thank you, it was very tasty. Hinata said, smiling sweetly and embarrassed as the mountain of cups rose above us. Nightmare. And I thought it was my good appetite. Yes, I'm nothing compared to her. It was just awesome. I said articulately, I'm sorry. I'm just a little hungry. Turning to me and glancing at Sasuke, Hinata said. No, it's nothing bad, it's just, we seem to be having a training session. I'm fine, I know myself, Sasuke didn't eat much, can you go to the training session? I answered with an arrangement and, watching her, got up from my chair. You never know if she would feel bad now. No, everything is fine, I can train. She answered with ardor, clasping her hands to her chest. Okay, then let's go, the food will settle along the way. Sasuke replied, hinting that it was only Hinata and me who got drunk. We went to the training ground, which is assigned to our team number 8. There we decided to start training together. As Kakashi-sensei said, before we disappear with a wounded leg and end up in the hospital, we have a good teamwork, we interact well with each other's abilities and ourselves personally, intuitively adjusting the battle to each other, especially this applies to Hinata. She did an excellent job of adapting to the battle scene and entering it unnoticed, which caught the relaxed Kakashi-sensei. It is surprising that even after receiving a through wound, he did not focus on us and did not begin to take us seriously. Just a little more. But, nevertheless, despite the good intuitive work in a team, you need to learn how to work in a team and consciously too, work out action schemes in different situations. In short, there are a lot of things to do. My shadow clones turned out to be an undoubted assistant in terms of training, which helped arrange various conditions for completing the mission, while having considerable strength, speed and relatively considerable strength. So, on the go, we learned to interact with each other, cover our backs, secure, change roles and take on tasks that are unusual for each other and then complete them. It was interesting, at some moments it was fun, sometimes it blew the tower from the fact that someone made the dumbest mistake. I was no exception. On the second day of training with the team, Kakashi returned and delighted us with a new mission. More precisely, the first mission. Commentary on Part 23. I know it's late, but there's nothing I can do. I want to sleep like crazy. So here's a short transitional chapter and wait for a new sale and I'm going to sleep. 1, 2, 3, checked. Answered. Part 24. To be honest, I expected something more from the missions. No, seriously. For 5 years, like the rest of the genin, I studied at the academy as a future warrior and assassin. I have already killed, I learned to accurately throw shurikens, I mastered the elements of water and fire, the technique of shadow clones at a good level. I am very strong and fast, so what biju our first mission was weeding the garden to get rid of weeds thereof. Where is the logic? Tell me. Such a quiet inner hysteria unfolded inside me, while I myself hung, inside myself waging a civil war with myself, but 5 minutes passed, and I woke up. By this time, Sasuke and Hinata had already started working and weeding the garden. People. I was thinking, I scratched the back of my head, and, frowning, continued, why are we humpbacking here? In terms of? Sasuke asked and turned to me, although it is strange that this genius himself did not guess. People, let's go train, to the biju this crap. I shrugged. And who will fulfill this miss? At that moment I folded the cloning seal and created exactly 100 clones, which immediately fled, since the sections were divided in advance, and got down to business. How I envy you, Naruto. Sasuke said quietly, and envy flared in his feelings, but was immediately crushed by his will. Alright, but where are we going? Yes, as usual. What else do we need a landfill for? I turned to Hinata, Hinata beauty, let's go to training. Yes, let's go. She answered cheerfully. All the while, Kakashi-sensei was watching and listening to us. We left, and Kakashi followed us, hiding in the foliage. We got to the range and just started a little training when the clones dispersed and passed on the knowledge that the mission was completed. They did not live very long, so the load was not very large and did not knock me down, except for a second staggered, but I immediately continued training, so hardly anyone noticed. The training was over after 3 hours, after which we went home to wash and meet again later. The 3 of us went back to Ichiraku Ramen, where we ate a lot, and I fed Hinata to the fullest. And what? I am not afraid of her getting fat, because I learned from Tokuda-senpai that for some of the Hyuga clan, this is a completely normal appetite. It is connected with the fact that they are the owners of one of the dojutsu, and it is very fragile, complex, but eerily voracious, both in terms of chakra and in terms of ordinary nutrients. It seems that they can consume something there, these 2 eyes. So, in some ways you are right, only Byakugans do not force the owner to constantly eat. No, he stores the most necessary substances in the body, in places where he can quickly and easily reach. That is why, when it is activated, the veins swell. Partially, due to active absorption of the chakra, which strains the capillaries and chakra channels in the eyes, and in part due to the absorption of these very deposited substances. Normally the Hyugi don't eat that much in front of everyone, but away from the public eye they eat almost more, and some members of this clan, more than the members of the Akimichi clan. Doctors are well aware of this, those who have ever taken up the treatment of one of the Hyugas, but try to tell us about it, this clan will destroy you. Literally. Who at least once undertook the treatment of one of the Hyugs, but try to tell us about it, this clan will destroy you. Literally. Who at least once undertook the treatment of one of the Hyugs, but try to tell us about it, this clan will destroy you. Literally. And so I constantly ate at first myself, walking on a par with Hinata, and then I also fed her. With our training, she definitely won't get fat, which Taguta senpai told me girls are afraid of, so I took the opportunity all the time. Hinata was shy, she tried to resist, she was shy and embarrassed, but she obeyed and ate until her hunger was satisfied. What can I say, in our training, we plan to start training soon using her Byakugan and Sasuke's Sharingan. Oh, I'm the only one who doesn't have cool eyes. It's even embarrassing somehow. Can you get eyes somehow? How did others get them? So there are ways, they are just, most likely, very difficult and therefore few have gone along it. But those who went have cool eyes and strength. When we all ate and talked, we decided to disperse. Sasuke left first. He said that he was tired of sitting with us, although by emotions I felt that he just wanted to sleep and leave us alone. Together with Hinata, we walked the streets and laughed at some of the situations we saw on them. In short, we had a good time. I accompanied her to her own quarter and from there quickly went to my clearing. Arriving there, I met again with my observer sensei. Again, I felt the observers move away somewhere and disappear from the radius. And then my training began. During training, I managed to notice some of the movements of my teacher, although most of them remained blurry and were not clearly perceived by me. My teacher's speed was tremendous, and I could hardly keep up against him. I was strong but the teacher was stronger, I was fast but he was faster. The only thing I won was in the strength of the body. In sparring, my control, as in a rather extreme environment, grew quite quickly. I got better and better, strengthened my whole body, which with my volumes was just incredibly effective. The teacher's blows were powerful, very powerful, but they only left bruises on me, which appeared after 12 seconds, and after a minute there were no more bruises at the site of the blow. Regeneration Roulette. And, most importantly, this is the only thing that does not weaken because of the bracelets and trains the way it is. Training with this sensei is the most unpleasant. There were very unpleasant days when I had to lie on the ground and recover for hours, waiting for the muscles, ligaments, bones to grow together, and for the joints to fall into place. He never forced me to practice, I myself came, voluntarily, despite what injuries I received. In the end I have regeneration and I use it to the fullest. In exchange for this, the sensei never held back, only at the very beginning he held back his strength, but one day he simply stopped and began to work at full strength. Did you receive such an order? But I can't help but admit that it was effective, albeit painful, and the emotions from this all the time jumped from peaks to great depths. He did not give any specific technique, he showed stances, movements, basic combinations that I had already practiced and consolidated in the battle with him and Sasuke, gradually supplementing and improving. The training was over and I was left to recover. When the sensei left, the observers returned, and when I recovered, I started doing the circles. Left a little. Now I have active growth and hormonal imbalance in the body, and this is the best time when you can actively develop physically, when progress is the fastest and most noticeable. And I already began to notice this, almost every day doing 2 sets of circles, increasing the number of circles every day, sometimes 3 or 4 circles. The amount of chakra also began to grow, as well as, albeit a little, but also and hence control. In short, the most active stage of my development has now begun, and I was not going to miss it. Let me have no limits, but there is an opportunity to develop quickly and efficiently. So go ahead. Sooner or later, we will start normal missions. Commentary on Part 24. The lecture is such a lecture that I decided to write a produ. There were no transfers for a long time, apparently everything, the fish season is over, sorry. Thank you all for reading, comments and ratings, all the best and all to the next sale. Most likely, tomorrow. Beta, come on. I, the author, call you, O Great One. Beta plus praise well done. Answered. Done by a cat. Part 25. A month has passed, during which our team received low-rank missions. It was everything from weeding gardens to babysitting children. We received them, then created shadow clones, they, in order to know what was happening, and I, as the main supplier of labor. But this is if there is a lot of work. If not, then we created a clone and sent them to work. For example, for sitting with children, this is exactly what we did. The originals, that is, we, went to a 2-hour team training. After that, we traditionally ate Ichiraku ramen and dispersed. Our workouts got a little harder each time for the rest. I don't know why, but Hinata has great stamina, which can't be said about Sasuke. No, everything is fine with him too, but if you compare, you can't say it, but Hinata is very strong and fast. And all this comes with stamina. Should I not know, to the one who constantly sparring with her? This turned out to be complicated. It was very difficult to convince Hinata not just to hit, but to actually fight me. She constantly resisted, not wanting to hurt me or Sasuke. But then I had to go to extreme measures. I had to play certain emotions that were not the most pleasant for Hinata, directing them at her and playing a small scene where Sasuke and I tried again and again to persuade her to act in full force, and when she once again could not overpower herself, Sasuke began to pour on her lethal dose of contempt and disappointment. I just radiated hope, helping to keep Hinata on the edge. And then, again refusing to hit me at the moment when I deliberately set myself up, she felt the same emotions from me, only much stronger. As it turned out, I can not only feel emotions, perceiving feelings, but also radiate them and even concentrate on one person. I didn't know about it then, but I did it involuntarily, which made Hinta feel contempt and disappointment from me many times stronger, and this completely blocked similar feelings from Sasuke. In addition, there was a psychological effect of the fact that she loves me, and also knows that I love her. And now it hit her even harder, so much so that she almost broke. The only thing she held on to was my hope, but it abruptly, instantly disappeared, transformed into these terrible feelings for Hinata. And it completely blocked those feelings from Sasuke. In addition, there was a psychological effect of the fact that she loves me, and also knows that I love her. And now it hit her even harder, so much so that she almost broke. The only thing she held on to was my hope, but it abruptly, instantly disappeared, transformed into these terrible feelings for Hinata. And it completely blocked those feelings from Sasuke. In addition, there was a psychological effect of the fact that she loves me, and also knows that I love her. And now it hit her even harder, so much so that she almost broke. The only thing she held on to was my hope, but it abruptly, instantly disappeared, transformed into these terrible feelings for Hinata. Hinata, please don't hold back. Fight at full strength, I beg you. Use everything you can. I shouted to her, and a small ember of hope lit up in my emotions, which she easily noticed among such a huge amount of negativity. It's like the light of a candle in pitch darkness. And she reached out to him. It hurted me. It hurts to come up with this scene, it hurts to rehearse it with Sasuke, teaching him to imitate and express the right feelings, it hurts to do the same and imagine what Hinata will experience at that moment. And it was an order of magnitude more painful for me to translate all this into reality. It hurts to feel her emotions and feel how she breaks, how the last straw she held on to disappeared, and she seemed to begin to sink. And when she felt that ember, she reached out to him and tried to do everything to reach him. And for this I broke myself, changed. And I was in pain, but physically. 16 places in different parts of the body flared up with pain in just a second. I felt how those places through which the chakra comes out, tenketsu, seemed to explode and huge volumes of chakra began to flow out of them, which made it seem that from those places where she hit, dark purple smoke began to come out with a small admixture of fiery red color. I saw, albeit with difficulty, her movements, but I couldn't even really see, let alone dodge. And a moment later, she was near Sasuke and dealt only 8 blows with the same effect, only the smoke did not come out of him. The pain from the teketsu was huge, and this pain did something in me, which made the concentration of red chakra in the smoke increase, and the smoke itself became heavier. As a result, it began to slowly descend to the ground. The pain began to subside little by little, and after 3 minutes the pain was gone, as was the smoke that came out of me. Hinata, half a minute after she laid Sasuke down, seemed to wake up and immediately rushed to me. She sat down next to me, immediately activated the Byakugan, which, by the way, she also used during the strikes, and began to examine me. The veins around her eyes bulged, the Byakugan changed slightly, and moisture began to accumulate in her eyes. She looked at me and soon the first tear flowed. Naruto. Naruto, I'm sorry, I didn't mean it like this, it hurts you, please forgive me, forgive me. Tears were already flowing in streams, concentration was lost and the Byakugan was deactivated, and Hinata was already slowly starting to get hysterical. Hinata, lean closer please. When she did that, I, despite the pain from the Teketsu that had not yet healed, made one movement and hugged Hinata. Well done. You were able to hit us with full force, you showed that you are strong and that we have room to grow, so thanks to you we will become even stronger. You are no longer a weak Hinata, and they won't be able to call you that, and if they do, immediately beat them. Forgive me for what I did here and please do not be offended by us, we wanted to help you and could not think of anything better, even if it was very painful, to hurt you, but it was necessary. Hinata cutie, will you forgive me and Sasuke? During my monologue, while I was hugging Hinata, my chakra system restored the damage to a minimum level and stopped releasing poisonous chakra out. It's good that none of the streams were directed towards Hinata. Naruto Baka, thank you, you and Sasuke-kun, thank you. Hugging me no weaker than I, said Hinata. It would be great to lie down like this for a couple of hours. But, hey. I'm actually still here. And it hurts a lot. Help me already. Sasuke screamed. Oh, there is no justice in the world. Commentary on Part 25. Mastered. Beta call. Activation. Is that Pikachu? No, it's Beta. Meow. Answered. Part 26. Are you sure it wouldn't be easier to just knock him out and trudge on in the comfort of silence? I asked the others walking nearby, that is, Sasuke, Hinata, Kakashi, and our client, who was walking nearby and heard me. Sasuke answered thoughtfully. I don't know. Hinata answered with doubt in her voice. I do not think that this is a good idea, he is still our customer. Kakashi-sensei said with a little hesitation at the beginning and increased confidence in his voice towards the end. After all, he will cease to be our customer after completing the mission to deliver him to the place alive. I asked hopefully. Yes, but, Sensei couldn't finish, as I and all the other members of my team simultaneously turned their heads to the customer with another bottle of alcohol in his hand and smiled sweetly at him. We are all waiting and just cannot wait for this second. I answered for all three, after which we turned around and continued on our way, but our customer began to emit just tons of fear and panic. It serves him right. Actually, it's probably worth explaining what's going on. And everything turned out to be just banal. Mission. First C-rank mission. Cool, of course, and all that, but damn, I'm already used to the previous missions and the fact that almost the whole day is free for training. It was wonderful when you can devote the whole day only to your development and your team with friends. More precisely, to one friend, Shino, who got Inazuka Kiba to the team, that bully who climbed up to me and Hinata, as well as Sakura Haruno, who recently went to medical courses at the hospital, where I met her. He told me all sorts of things about her, including her obsession with Sasuke. She talks about him all the time. Horror what? With Sasuke, I continued to train in taijutsu. And now we have a certain parity. He saw my every move with the Sharingan, and sometimes he could dodge by placing diverting blocks, but he could no longer deal with me only with technique. Even though I didn't have my own super style, I did have separate elements of the fight that I practiced, supplemented and improved every move in fights with a much superior nameless sensei. But my strength and speed are constantly growing, especially now, but Sasuke's progress in this regard is not so great. No, if I didn't take advantage of my great regeneration, would never be able to keep up with him, yet, Sasuke is probably not called the genius of the clan for nothing, his progress is very fast, and he has already significantly outperformed the rest of the students in our course, with the exception of me, Hinata and, everything, I guess. The rest of us three overtook very, very significantly. If you think about how we even ended up on the same team, everyone is so strong, because we were told that the distribution of teams takes into account the strengths and weaknesses of each member and is compensated by another member. Then why are the three strongest genin on the same team? Just now, thinking about this question, all sorts of thoughts began to appear in my mind. So, the constant growth of strength and speed gradually brings Sasuke and me back to where we started, my physical superiority over him, and at the same time parity in tactics, which always led to my victories. And I don't know if this is good or bad. I began to notice during our sparring that not the most positive emotions appear in him, even if he crushes them with his will almost immediately, but this is an alarming bell. And what to do? Do not explain to him that I have such an advantage from nature or from a monster sitting inside me. No, I tried, really tried. And he seems to understand everything, realizes, but only the worm of envy still appears sometimes, even if it is immediately suppressed. With Hinata, everything was just wonderful with her. After she knocked out Tenketsu for us, and we, after my recovery, took Sasuke to the hospital, where he was treated until the morning and left there in the morning, having slept at the same time, Hinata seemed to overcome the barrier that prevented her from harming people close to her. Cause them pain. No, this does not mean that she started beating us right away, it's just that now she really could hit, which she did all the time during our training. Hinata, fighting at full strength, has become a fearsome fighter. In close combat, she somehow sharply accelerated literally for a second and delivered 16 blows at great speed to different points of the body, knocking out Tenketsu, which caused terrible pain and seriously interfered with the use of chakra. That's just such an acceleration at which she can hit 16 times in a second, she can only use at maximum stamina once, and then land 8 hits per second twice and that's it. After this, she rests for a very long time, because she is exhausted incredibly. I wanted to learn this, and I did, but it didn't work out. No, the Byakugan is not the problem here, it is only needed to know where to hit, the problem is the unrealistic chakra control. Realistically, Hinata's chakra control is way better than Sasuke's. As for that incident, she not only was not offended, but also thanked us for it, especially me. In general, as I noticed, although Hinata's shyness has not become less, but she learned to overcome it just fine. Imagine my surprise when I sit on my bench and feel Hinata, judging by my feelings, coming up from behind, and then bam, and they hug me from the back, just flooding me with cubic meters of embarrassment. Yes, a little right there did not spread from this. Moreover, I didn't spread almost literally, because I felt how my chakra began to turn into the chakra of water and in a strange way permeate my body. Then I quickly prevented all this and just continued to flinch in the hands of Hinata, but I took note of this case. For a month we did these stupid missions, but in the end, I and the rest got used to it, and when it happened, just a couple of days later we were given the mission of the next rank. The task itself was simple, escort and security, but the person who had to be escorted was terrible. An alcoholic with a terrible temper is Tazuna. So I'm thinking, will we tolerate it or not? Will he live or not? Commentary on Part 26. I wrote before bed. I could not help but write, someone threw the stolnik on the card, did not introduce himself, but you cannot ignore it. Thanks to the unknown, I hope you and everyone else enjoy the chapter. Delayed call beta. 1993, 986, 979, 972, 965, 958, 951, checked by Diamond, checked by Nemaniel. Checked by Cat. Part 27. The first surprise occurred after 3 days of a leisurely journey at the speed of our customer. So we were walking slowly. First, I sensed 2 new sources of emotion. There was anticipation, excitement and several other emotions, and then, quietly watching the source, I saw a puddle. In the middle of the road on the 3rd hot sunny day in a row, when not even clouds appeared. And emotions come from there. Among the techniques of the elements of water, there were many useful ones. One of these is merging with water, which allows you to hide in any body of water from a lake to a puddle. And here it is, a puddle. I didn't think for a long time, because as soon as I felt new emotions signaling that the ambush would now begin to operate, and I have no doubts that it was an ambush, I went ahead of the curve and laid down the seal of concentration, taking control of the water. On the one hand, it was dangerous. If they were strong enough, I would not have succeeded. If they were good enough in Suiton, I would not have succeeded either, but both of them surpassed their performance in these areas, and therefore, the technique of merging with water is dangerous because it cannot be used if there is a better shinobi in this element, since he will simply take control of the water and kill the shinobi hiding in it without any resistance. I did not use a technique, only direct control, but it was enough for me to simply tear one of the hiding shinobi into pieces inside the puddle, causing it to immediately turn red with blood, and a second later a second shinobi jumped out of there. He hesitated for 1 second, staring at the blood-red puddle with wide eyes, and then rushed towards me with a scream. Why did he run towards me? Perhaps because I'm the only one who folded the seal and his friend or partner was killed. Only here is the fact that he could not run. Behind him, a long chain with a bloody glove on the end, the same as on his hand, stretched out of the puddle, and Sasuke nailed this chain with kunai and shurikens. Immediately, Hinata jumped up to the shinobi and knocked out 8 of his tenketsu, making it impossible to use the chakra. And then she delivered one blow to the head, and the enemy lost consciousness. The entire fight, from my seal of concentration to the loss of consciousness, judging by his feelings, it was just that, no more than 10 seconds passed. The same Tazuna did not understand anything at all and was now staring blankly at the knocked-out shinobi. Great job. You are great. Defeated the Chunin, Kakashi began to broadcast. 2. I answered and nodded to the puddle. Kakashi didn't even look, just nodded, admitting he was right. This one might be needed alive. Right. Naruto, how did you manage the second one? He asked me. They used the technique of merging with water, but the main danger of the technique is that you may not be lucky, and you will come across among your enemies someone who owns the element of water better than you or simply stronger in the chakra with a penchant for water, then you are nothing you will not be able to oppose, but you will be killed without resistance. So I did with the second, or rather the first, I just tore it apart with water, which is my main element. Are you that good at managing water? This is unusual for your age. He narrowed his eyes. Shadow clones and large volumes of chakra, and even mixed with a high propensity for the elements, work incredible miracles in terms of the speed of mastering the elements. After all, I wounded you in the leg not with technique, but with direct control, forming a water blade under you. And that means something. While I was answering Sensei, I simultaneously approached the puddle that was mixed with blood and meat and looked at it. Some thought flickered in my head, but did not want to form completely. You are probably right, but such success in the elemental transformation and control of the elements is a very big success. Sasuke has no less success in the fire element, but it is not his main element, so, without taking into account our volumes and the use of shadow clones, Sasuke is ahead of me. I take quantity. P.F. I heard Sasuke's answer to this little speech of mine, although his emotions clearly express pleasure at such a review about him. Whatever you say, and no matter how he behaves, I know that he is a good guy, and therefore even the usual praise from someone who, in fact, is ahead of him in almost everything, still warms his conceit. Nobody is protected from this. Kakashi-sensei only nodded at my words and looked at Sasuke, after which he went to the knocked-out enemy Chunin. I looked at the puddle, trying to catch that thought, to form it, but it just left me, not wanting to take shape. This feeling is similar to how you wanted to say something, got distracted, forgot what you wanted to say and, no matter how hard you try, you just can't remember, although you know for sure that this is something important. There is something similar here. I can't remember what thought flashed through my head. Naruto, what are you doing? Hinata asked as she approached. Nothing important, Hinata. I turned to her and saw how pale she was. Hinata, are you all right? Are you not hurt? Did something hurt? Why so pale? He looked at her hands, they were all shaking. Nothing, Naruto, it's fine, it's just. I've never seen so much blood, because there was one of the Chunin, and he stayed there, didn't he? She asked, nodding at the puddle where I stood. Everything is clear, for her, such a sight as a rather large pool of blood with pieces of a shinobi's body floating in it was too hard for the first time. Here she is shaking all over. Although this is not the first murder, it gives no weaker brain damage. Really, Hinata, really. Come here, calm down. Everything is fine, this is the enemy, so you have to do this sometimes, calm down. I calmed Hinata and said that everything is fine, while thinking about why I react to this so calmly. Ordinarily. Is it really a consequence of my dream with the appearance of Axel? Did he really influence me so much that murder, and very cruel, I must admit, is the norm for me? Guys, let's go, I found out everything we needed to know. Kakashi appeared nearby and immediately turned to Tazuna with a serious face. But with you we will have a very interesting conversation. Commentary on part 27. Today is a rip-off. I'll go free. Rest. Thank you all for reading this chapter and I hope you enjoy it. I'm sorry that the speed has decreased, but I have a milestone and the session is approaching, so I'm spinning as best I can and writing in pairs. The fish didn't come to me, which is sad, but thanks to an unknown anonymous person for his gift that came so unexpectedly last night. Thank you, very nice. Summon beta. Activation. Activated, are you happy? Answered. Part 28. Alas, our sensei decided not to abandon the mission on the basis of its overly high rank, which, instead of the required C, abruptly jumped to a rank. Still not to jump, because we need to protect the customer from not only the shinobi, but also one of the 7 swordsmen of the fog, Momochi Zabuza, who, according to rumors, but in our situation this is tantamount to an exact fact, was hired by the one because of whom we need to deliver the bridge builder alive and wait for the bridge to be completed. This is not a trifle for you, but quite a very strong shinobi. Instead of refusing, he sent a message with information about the unexpected increase in the mission in order for its rank to grow and officially, too, which promises more money, and the corresponding mark will appear in the case. As for Zabuza himself, our sensei, who is also a jonin and just a very strong shinobi, is opposed to him. The further journey passed in silence, there were no conversations, as in the first 3 days, simply because now we were potentially threatened not by anyone, such as ordinary robbers, but by real and dangerous shinobi, who are very dangerous in the first place because they can attack at any time and from anywhere. This means you have to be constantly vigilant. So the rest of the time passed, until we got to the border of the country of fire and the country of waves. It was a wide river with an equally large bridge. There we also waited for the crossing, which was expressed in a boatman on a motorboat. We didn't wait long, and after a mutual greeting between the 2 individuals, the boatman and Tazuna, got into the boat and slowly crossed over to the landing site. All the time we sailed, I listened to my emotions, as I did all the last time, looking for any sentient beings that might lay in ambush. And I also identified something very interesting. For example, the fact that something very bad happened to the boatman, or rather not to himself, but to one of his relatives or other very dear people, because of which he experiences a whole bunch of corresponding emotions, such as regret, bitterness and determination. That's just the determination to what? Temporarily. Finally, when we arrived at the place, we all went ashore together, where, even at the moment of approaching the shore, I felt 3 sources of emotions, 2 of which were completely identical to each other, which indicates that these are clones, but the third the source was different, that is, separate, which means that this someone is most likely not a clone, at least not a clone of the first 2, but most likely an accomplice, or an observer. Going ashore, I felt how right now the boatman's determination had reached its maximum, and he barely perceptibly sighed deeply, pulled the rope and started the boat motor, going into the fog, in which, by the way, if you concentrate, you can feel someone else's chakra. It's clear. Betrayal and ambush. On the one hand, I can understand this boatman, because, apparently, he did not just decide to take this difficult step for him, but because his relatives or friends were somehow threatened, or they were on the verge of death, and only this step could help save them. That's why he decided to do it, although one could feel that he really treats Tazuna quite well, in a friendly way, but relatives are more expensive. As I said, in some way I can understand him, this boatman, but only understand, not accept. Betraying someone, be prepared for the retribution for this, which can befall both in tens of years and instantly. A sharp wave of the hand and 5 clots of water fly out of the water of the river, which instantly take the desired shape and turn into shurikens with a displaced balance, which, diverging like a fan, must definitely get it from one of the sides. A moment later, we heard a faint cry of pain and then a fall into the water, which was drowned out by the sound of a motorboat, which continued to sail on, despite the fact that the owner and driver of the boat had already left it. I hate betrayal. My parents betrayed me and left me, although I began to doubt this from the moment I understood the relationship between the tattoo on my stomach and that monster in me. I hate the very essence of betrayal, because of which a person dear to me, a friend, almost went crazy when his brother is officially considered to have slaughtered the entire clan. Even if it was not him, but someone from the village. It's not the traitors themselves that infuriate me and cause hatred, the very essence of betrayal irritates me. For me, betrayal is orders of magnitude worse than murder or theft. And I would rather kill the traitor. This is what I understood at the moment when I barely heard the sound of immersing the body in water. It was then that I fully realized all this, formulated this important thought for myself. Judging by the emotions, only Sasuke and Kakashi-sensei understood what happened, and even then, the first one is not entirely sure of the assumptions, but Kakashi-sensei, on the one hand, was dissatisfied with my action, and on the other hand, he agreed. But in the next seconds, no one thought about my actions. A new character appeared, which, I must admit, made this appearance very effective and dangerous. A huge cleaver flew right over our heads as we all crouched together, sensing danger, and someone else, hearing a command from Sensei. Flying over us, the blade crashed into a tree and remained in it, after which it landed, it seems, the owner of this murder weapon, Momochi Zabuza. A mask of wide bandages on the face and an almost naked torso, pants and standard shinobi shoes. The second one hasn't shown up yet. Well, let's see if we can destroy them, or if we have to run, if possible. Commentary on Part 28. Well, just selling. Happy reading everyone. I tell everyone again, I will not include a public beta and there is no point in writing comments to me with errors in the text. I am interested in writing my thoughts, expressing them in writing, embodying and developing the idea as best as I can, trying to follow my own certain rules, but I am completely too lazy to correct errors, and that is why I master the beta call. If there are complaints about the beta, then you are welcome to become the second beta and help. I'm too lazy to correct mistakes. I hope for your understanding and that the constant comments and messages with requests to include PB, if they don't disappear altogether, they will at least decrease. Bye everyone, until the next sale. Answered. Part 29. Crouch to save his head from the cleaver, move away from the kick and wave his hand, diving under the backswing, from which the thread of water extended, causing sufficient damage, causing the water clone of Chunin to disintegrate with water. The water clone technique uses water as a medium, creating a copy of the user, but the clone only gains a tenth of the powers and abilities of the original, so the clone was relatively easy to deal with. In fact, this is about the same as the original will put on my bracelets, only the clones are much more fragile, or rather vulnerable. At the same time, there was a battle going on between our sensei and Zabuza. Zabuza tried to hit Kakashi with his cleaver, and he fought back with a kunai and dodged, trying to hit the enemy himself. They had parity, and it is not clear who will win. At some point, both shinobi switched to using techniques. Kakashi used a Sharingan, almost the same as Sasuke's, only Sensei had, if I counted correctly, 3 tomo. The fight got even bigger. Basically, water techniques were used, which made me very happy, since this is my main element, in which I achieved the greatest success, which, in comparison with the others, was very significant. Fire, of course, is given to me better and better, as if the affinity with the element itself increases with time, but I have already got used to water, and it has firmly taken the position of the main element. May not be the only one. At one point, Kakashi jumped into the water, dodging another Zabuza technique. But, to be honest, he did it in vain. I, having direct control over the water, could, if not kill him, then seriously injure him. How? He's a Jonin. Yes, even if you are a Kage, if you do not have proper protection against water, then, once in the water, I can simply create compacted blades of water in the right places, which will be invisible underwater, and direct them from all sides at the enemy. Including in such vulnerable ones as the eyes. Therefore, I personally consider this step very reckless. And his opponent, Chunin Zabuza, proved me right by using the water technique, water prison. This technique has both advantages and disadvantages. The main disadvantage of this technique is contact. A shinobi must be in contact with the technique in order to control and maintain it, otherwise it will simply collapse. You have some pretty talented genin, copy Sharingan Kakashi. They were even able to handle my clone. Let's see how the others do. With those words, he closed the seal of concentration with one hand and created 3 clones that quickly headed towards us. We have prepared for battle. Since I was the closest, the first clone got to me the fastest, while the others started to circle around, advancing towards Sasuke and Hinata. Swing the sword obliquely, from which I go somersault to the side and immediately put my hands forward, blocking the blow with my foot. From a sitting position, I hit the limb with my foot, at the last moment creating a water blade on the toe. The water weapon went inside the clone, and it disintegrated with water after a second and a half. Turning around, I see how Sasuke dodges the blade and trips trying to knock Zabuza down, but he jumps, avoiding hooking, ready to hit with a weapon again. Only a moment before landing he is knocked down by a third clone that climbed to Hinata. Both clones were shot down and immediately hit by a kunai from Sasuke, after which they disintegrate. Not bad. Each of you is quite strong for your age. But do you really already think that you have already become a ninja if you received this piece of iron with the sign of the village? You are. Zabuza was interrupted by a volley of kunai and my water shuriken. He used the water wall technique for protection, for which he instantly created a water clone that replaced him in holding the water prison technique. Kunai were not simple, but with explosion seals, but the explosion did not help much here. He could not completely break through the wall technique. But he destroyed it. Okay, if you want it bad, we'll be bad. Said, releasing ki, Zabuza. Sasuke, Kakashi-sensei is on you, do whatever you want, but release him, and Hinata and I will delay the original. After receiving a nod from the Uchiha, Hinata and I stepped forward and headed towards Zabuza. He did not say anything, only making a dash towards us and already bringing a real sword to strike. At the last moment, I pushed Hinata, and she went away from my serve to the side, moving away from the sword, but I made a jump and flew with my feet into the face of the Chunin. Except it wasn't a clone, so I wasn't even surprised when Zabuza's second hand blocked my punch. Pushing away from him, I twisted in a jump and, while the distance between us was small, used blades from the water, which elongated sharply. The first success, Zabuza's left arm received 2 stab wounds. At the same moment, Zabuza shifted and placed his sword behind him, with which he blocked Hinata's blow, and at the same time, having already landed, I created 6 shadow clones that laid down seals, and each had a water weapon. I had praying mantis paws. Some had a whip, some just blades. One of the clones rushed forward. He had a whip with which he attacked. The blow was blocked, and immediately the clone dodged, dodging the sword, and the second clone, with blades, attacked from below and managed to cut his leg a little before he had to jump back. One of the clones suddenly dissipated, and I almost instantly processed the information received. Clear. Another clone grabbed Hinata, who attacked Zabuza again and again, managing to hit twice, causing Zabuza to wince in pain, and his emotions gave off pain. Grabbing Hinata, the clone jumped away, as did I, after which all the remaining clones at once, without seals, blew out a giant fireball, which was almost directly aimed at Zabuza. The same one, with widened eyes, created a water prison, only around himself, which, albeit with difficulty, but protected him from fire, but inflicted many burns all over his body from boiling water. The clones were fully invested and collapsed, but they were no longer needed. Zabuza dispelled the technique and was ready to attack again, but his eyes widened again and he began to turn around to the surface of the water. When he turned around, all he saw was Kakashi, who was running towards him at great speed with some kind of lightning technique in his hand, preparing to strike hard. A moment before the impact, an ice mirror grew in front of Zabuza, and another in front of him. In total, 7 ice mirrors were formed. And then Kakashi struck. The first, second, third, fourth and fifth with the 6th and 7th were destroyed, after which the blow hit the Chunin. I don't know what the final result should have been, but Zabuza burned out all the skin on the left side of his chest and meat up to the bones of the chest, and then threw him 10 meters. Even before the fall of the Chunin, his partner also showed himself. He climbed out of the ice mirror that appeared at the site of Zabuza's fall and, grabbing Zabuza, immediately fell back into the mirror, where a dense water core flew in a moment later. The mirror cracked and shattered, but there was no effect. I did not feel the emotions of these 2 Nukanins, they went somewhere with this movement technique. They are gone. I said. Hinata scanned the area with her Byakugan, then confirmed my words with a nod of her head. Then, I guess, we all need to get some rest, Sensei barely managed to say and then collapsed from chakra exhaustion. Hinata, Sasuke, you are great. I said, and after that I created 3 clones, which will carry the sensei. Surprisingly, despite everything, we genin received the least amount of damage. Unlike our Jonin sensei. Perhaps there is some irony in this. Commentary on part 29. A beautiful girl quietly walked along the entrance area and, taking the keys she found in her bag, quietly opened the door to the apartment. It was night, and it was dark, but even so, her gaze caught on something, though she did not understand what it was. But she suspected. Very quietly, silently, she walked across the carpet and walked to the door that leads to the bathroom. Well, what did you come for? Asked her voice from the darkness. Are you awake? The girl asked into the darkness. Have you become a captain now? No, forgive me. I don't know what came over me, just suddenly, and once, and then I'm already there, away from home. I thought that this is what I dreamed about, but it turned out without you. I just can't. I endured and hoped that this would pass, that I would find someone else, but it was impossible to find anyone like you. I changed my mind, and decided to return, in the hope that you would take me back and let's do the same thing we did before. Please forgive me. The girl shouted into the darkness. Well, I'll try, and as for classes, let's start immediately. Muse. Thank you. Thanks author. PA. That's how we made peace with this girl. PB hooray. 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 PB, N. Dropped. PB, cat, finished off. Part 30. Commentary on Part 30. Then they complain to me in the comments that I write very rarely and little. I admit. This is true. But, guys, my neighbor offered to take a photo, but it's too long and I'm scrapped, so I'll put it in words. Believe me, dear unregistered user, if you didn't level the ground, making it look like a border, and then you didn't paint with a gouache brush, for lack of a normal one, this land and the grass on it white so that it would look like a border from the side, then you just don't have the moral right to blame Mayan, because here it happens and from this I have a quiet hysteria every motherfucking, bitch, fucking fag day. I will write especially for you what I wrote at the very beginning of my way as a freewriter, although I have not gone far even now. I write primarily to satisfy my imagination, which often requires some kind of design, which translates into the text. Since I can't draw manga, I tried. Secondly, I write for those who are really looking forward to continuing, which is expressed in throwing money on my card in various size. If a person is ready to spend money for the sake of what I would write, then I was able to hook him, and for the sake of such people I don't want to and write through laziness, and there, as they say, appetite comes with eating. And in the third place, I write for other readers who put weights, likes and comments. But I didn't sign up for compulsory labor through I can't. So that's how I can do it. Which is expressed in throwing money on my card in different amounts. If a person is ready to spend money for the sake of what I would write, then I was able to hook him, and for the sake of such people I don't want to and write through laziness, and there, as they say, appetite comes with eating. And in the third place, I write for other readers who put weights, likes and comments. But I didn't sign up for compulsory labor through I can't. So that's how I can do it. Which is expressed in throwing money on my card in different amounts. If a person is ready to spend money for the sake of what I would write, then I was able to hook him, and for the sake of such people I don't want to and write through laziness, and there, as they say, appetite comes with eating. And in the third place, I write for other readers who put weights, likes and comments. But I didn't sign up for compulsory labor through I can't. So that's how I can do it. Everything seems to have spoken out. How did he, a Jonin, manage to fall ill with exhaustion so quickly? I was genuinely outraged. No, what is it? And is that a Jonin? I don't argue, he is very fast and strong, knows a lot of techniques, has a Sharingan, moreover, quite developed, with 3 tomo, but what's the point if he can only fight a very short fight with a small number of techniques used, with a huge number of known ones, with this after a fight with one opponent falls with exhaustion. Naruto, calm down. Not all monsters are like you in terms of chakra. It is you who can use high-level techniques dozens of times and only suffer from overvoltage of the channels, but not from high spending. But here's what Hinata, what Kakashi-sensei can't do. He used his lightning technique, but when he saw those mirrors, he poured all the remaining chakra into her at once. As we saw, even so, the power of the technique was barely enough to take out Zabuza. Yes, that's right. Can you even see chakra? I asked Sasuke, since he had never noticed this before. Yeah. In that fight, although he was not on the verge of death, but very close, I used all my strength. And I got scared. The Uchiha finished in a whisper, after which he continued quite loudly. I got scared when the original Zabuza, not a clone with 1/10 of his strength, but a real and evil A-rank Nuke Nin, one of the 7 great swordsmen of the Blood Mist, went against you, and the 2 of you covered me while I dealt with his clone and freed Sensei, the 2 of you, against a deadly killer. A very strong shinobi. And I was very scared, for you. Then I saw the chakra. With that, Sasuke looked at me with his Sharingan with 2 slowly spinning tomos. Wow, to be honest, such a long speech is already knocking out of the usual groove, and even if you understand the content. I glanced at Hinata, she blushed all over from such words. I admit, even I was confused. Listen, Sasuke, it's very unusual to hear such words from you, so don't be offended, but why all of a sudden such revelations? It's just, you're an Uchiha, where's the pride of the clan and everything? Hinata nodded at my words. She is generally quite silent and likes to listen more, which, combined with her cute smile on her face, makes her just killer cute. During this time, after the fight there was time to think. I remembered everyone I knew in my clan, my parents, my brother, and I lost them all. Nobody left. Just you and Hinata. So for what Biju should I constantly maintain the etiquette of my clan, which is practically non-existent, with those who stood on a par with him, who remained the only dear people for me? With others, yes, but with you. I just don't want it. Wow. Sasuke's second long speech in a row. Yes, and with such content. Unable to stand it, I fold the seal and Kai. 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 I tried again and again, but there was no effect. Wow, no genjutsu, I'm serious. Naruto, stop it. Okay, sorry again. But what are we going to do with it? I pointed with a nod of my head at our sensei, who was still not awake, which is perfectly felt by his feelings. Protect the architect and wait until the sensei recovers. I don't see any other options. It is unlikely that Zabuza and his partner will come here in the near future, and his employer will not come here himself. To gather a crowd of ordinary people mercenaries, it will take a couple of days for sure. And if he has already prepared a large detachment? Hinata spoke up. In that case, we'll know in advance of their approach thanks to you, Hinata, and you, Naruto. I'm going to take a walk and check out the surrounding area. Don't set too many traps, otherwise the architect's family won't be able to go out the door without our help. I called out as Sasuke left. PF, serve me as an answer from him. The Uchiha walked out the door and closed it. In the house of the architect bridge builder, where he brought us, there were I, Hinata, our customer himself, his daughter, and Inari, a kind of amorphous pessimistic child. He tried to infect us with his pessimism, but it didn't work out. I'm an even greater pessimist, I just hide it well, but he didn't reach the rest, a fist engulfed in flames, and even hanging right in front of his nose, a weighty argument in order to throw away such an idea. As for the trick itself, this is a new trick that my clones have trained during training. Fire was getting better and better for me, and two clones who trained techniques from other elements noticed that the same changes began to occur with the element of air, in terms of mastering, as with fire. That is, affinity with this element, as if by itself, began to develop. Slowly at first, but the further, the faster. This phenomenon puzzled both me and the clones, but we have not yet made any conclusions, simply not understanding what is the source of such an increase in affinity with the elements. But that's another matter. The main thing is that although my control over fire is not yet as high as over water, my skills are already enough to do such a trick on bare control of the elements. In general, bare control over the element is the bar after which the real development in this element begins. Before that, you influence her, by and large, due to seals, but some techniques, including very dangerous ones, can only be used on naked controls. And using it, the speed and quality of affinity grows much more than with the monotonous use of elemental techniques with seals. Therefore, all my clones who train in the elements and techniques of underdeveloped elements, that is, air, lightning and earth, strive to master this element at least at a minimum level in the form of direct control. After that, the process will begin to go much faster. Practice, at least in two elements, speaks precisely about this. Staying in the house, I created 3 clones, each of which I separated from the feed, which is why they began to use their nested resource. I recently learned this. The connection with the clones remains, but the replenishment does not go to them. These clones should, without unforeseen circumstances, live for about 8 hours, after which they dissipate. The 3 of them spread out around the house and watched the members of the family, partly, although most of their attention was focused on the windows through which they kept an eye on the surroundings. Hinata, every 15 minutes scan the area at the maximum distance for the presence of unknown objects. For the rest, rely on the clones, they are watching the area and they will definitely notice the enemy who gets close, but at long distances you are the queen and goddess. At my words, Hinata smiled and nodded, and at the moment of nodding through her dark hair, I noticed how her ears turned red, and at that time the wind blew me from her emotions of joy and embarrassment. Bijou, it's just like a drug that I'm already addicted to, completely and irrevocably. Fine. What are you going to do now? Hinata asked me. I'll wash myself, and then I'll go for herbs in the forest. Here I have already found a lot of useful things along the way, so I will find even more during the collection. Sensei needs help to recover as quickly as possible, and I, albeit only in theory, but already a B-rank copper. And really something, but I have to understand the herbs. Okay, I'll wash up, rest for now. Also, Hinata, while I'm washing, don't use the Byakugan, please. Having said that, I went to bathe. What? Why? My partner asked me, and then she hit me with such a powerful wave of embarrassment that I almost fainted from such ecstasy. And then a feeling appeared among Hinata's feelings that I interpreted as an insight. I don't even want to think what she thought. Part 31. The forest was indeed full of flowers, herbs and other plants, which are very helpful in healing if properly harvested. I myself know the theory of medicine at the level of a B-rank physician, but this is just a theory, and I have not had any practice to this day. And precisely because of the inability to use med techniques and thus heal people, I studied the theory in herbs very well, since, in the case of them, my destructive and poisonous chakra does not matter. For herbs, I took a special bag that I borrowed from Tezuna's daughter. As it turned out, she also collects herbs and prepares decoctions. We talked a little about this topic with her. She told me about some herbs that grow in this area, and about which I knew nothing, since these herbs do not grow in the land of fire. I walked through the forest and enjoyed the beautiful nature. I enjoyed the smell that appeared due to the morning dew. In general, I enjoyed it. Until the moment when he felt the hearth of emotions. Feelings were quite peaceful. A feeling of care, happiness, joy, a little sadness, and a barely noticeable sense of relief. And everything would be fine. I would not even pay attention to this source of emotions and the spectra that they radiate if I did not recognize this hearth. Each focus of emotions is unique. I learned this a long time ago, because even among twins emotions differ, as well as their centers. It's like smelling roasted meat and caramel. The smells are completely different, and it is simply impossible to confuse them. It is the same with the source of emotions, except that the spectrum is infinitely larger and more diverse. The human nose is simply not able to capture and distinguish between such a huge number of different smells, how many emotions I feel with my empathy, while, as I noticed a long time ago, the more often I concentrate on the emotions of others, the faster this gift of mine develops. Previously, I could not distinguish such a variety of emotions, or rather, earlier I generally perceived only negative emotions, but now I feel a huge variety of them. Moreover, some emotions affect me differently. So, for example, embarrassment and joy, which I perceive in large quantities from Hinata, affect me like some kind of short-term drug, causing waves of ecstasy. Negative emotions invigorate me very much and force me, willy-nilly, to tone up, preparing to repel an attack or be the first to strike. These or those emotions of the people around me cause a variety of responses of my mind and body at the level of instincts. So, in this source of emotions, I definitely recognized that partner of Zabuza. But, nevertheless, this guy's emotions are so peaceful that it became very difficult for me to prepare for a possible fight. This was not expressed in the preparation of weapons or something like that. No, I simply prepared, in the event of a fight, to attack or defend, in extreme cases, tactically retreat to my team. We met in a clearing with lots of herbs. I'm sure, or rather I know for sure that he felt me even at a distance of 100 meters, apparently, he didn't really try, or he doesn't have high sensitivity. In the clearing, which I went out to, a young guy with a very good-looking appearance was sitting on his knees. Clothing also did not make it clear who it was, he or she. If not for empathy, then I would easily confuse him with a girl, but I knew for sure that this was not a girl, but a guy. Sitting on his knees, the guy was picking herbs, outwardly not even paying attention to me, although in feelings there is a slight tension in concentration. They recognized me too. Hello. Do you collect herbs here too? I asked first. Why didn't you attack? Because I always have time, but it is unlikely that I will be able to find out any information after the attack. Hello. They answered me in a soft voice. I don't understand. He deliberately exposes himself as a girl, even his voice does not give out a guy in him, or does it come out of him involuntarily? Yes, one person dear to me fell ill, so I want to help him. That's how. I have about the same. What is your name? My name is Naruto, Haku. Nice to meet you, Naruto. That's how we met. Listen, are you good at herbs? Will you share your experience? Maybe we can tell each other something new and show. Haku thought for a moment, then nodded weakly in agreement. We talked for 3 hours about herbs, their properties, combinations, possible decoctions, and so on. Haku turned out to be a good connoisseur who could shut me up with her knowledge of herbs, but I also had something to tell him. Later, after the herbs, the conversation turned to other topics. We spoke freely and naturally. I must admit that Haku turned out to be an excellent conversationalist, even though for all the time he never lessened his wariness towards me, although outwardly, again, he did not show it at all. It was already noon, and we both decided to disperse, having collected a bunch of herbs during this time, which will be useful to us. We were already parting in different directions and were almost at different ends of the clearing when I felt the relief of my future opponent. And I didn't even doubt that he would. Therefore, I decided to break off his raspberries. See you soon, Haku. I hope the next time we meet, your loved one will show more, and you will not sit in the shade of the leaves of the trees. We were far apart, but I clearly felt that Haku heard me, because his emotions exploded in just a bunch of spectra. There was anxiety, and fear, and strong alertness, and suspicion. Immediately, Haku broke and ran somewhere. Zabuzu to check, probably, because it may seem that I distracted him for a long time, while my sensei and others, for example, talked to the Nuke Nin. He does not know what state he is in, and the fact that I was collecting herbs here could be an ordinary conspiracy. I headed back. We need to help Sensei get back on his feet. Commentary on Part 31. Answered. Part 32. Kakashi was able to get back on his feet after 2 days, and finally all the consequences, at least noticeable to me, passed after a week of increased nutrition with numerous decoctions that had a beneficial effect on him. After the restoration, our mission continued, but now everyone was constantly on the alert. Except that Hinata sometimes went red, smiling strangely at the same time, which is why we all sometimes looked askance at her, and she experienced simply unreal embarrassment at moments of such reddening. We got to the site without incident, and construction had already continued there. Here are just a few isolated shots. One such, for example, constantly tried to dissuade Tazuna from building a bridge, fearing Gato. But the bridge builder did not give up his work and continued. And at some point, when the bridge was almost completely built, fog covered the area. Naruto, they're here. Hinata said quickly. Apparently she realized that she could not see fully through the fog and put 2 and 2 together. And a few seconds later, 2 sources of emotion entered my zone of sensitivity. Already familiar. There are 2 of them this time. Be ready. It was said for the team, Kakashi-sensei is unlikely to need my words. A little time passed, and Nukanins appeared before us. Haku and Zabuza. Haku was dressed in a white shinobi uniform and was fully prepared for battle, but Zabuza did not look as impressive as in our last meeting. The skin is a little more sunken, circles under the eyes from fatigue, a slightly more hunched figure. In short, Kakashi-sensei's injury had taken its toll on him. His entire chest was bandaged, and the swordsman himself tried to less strain the left side of his chest when moving. Apparently, he did not fully recover, but enough to fight at the same level, albeit not for as long as before. Hello again, Kakashi. Last time we couldn't finish our conversation. This time I will make a point. Haku, take care of the rest. And be careful, they are very strong for genin and work well together. Haku just nodded at that, looking only at me the whole time. But in the next second, he made a sharp movement with his hand, and a swarm of sharp ice needles flew at us, which were stopped by a not particularly thick water wall formed by my kick on the ground. It happened reflexively. When the water fell, 4 of my shadow clones were standing next to me, and several more shadow clones dissipated, giving me information about the completely repulsed attack on the house with Tazuna's family. Sasuke and Hinata also rushed to the side, bypassing the enemy from the sides. Haku sent a small beam of ice needles at each of them, which flew out in a small fan, and then threw several of the same beams at me and my clones. We ran to the sides and formed shurikens from the water, throwing them at the ice shinobi. As I understand it, this is a manifestation of the so-called Kekkeigenkai, the heritage of blood, which allows you to use 2 elements at the same time, forming a new, mixed, third element that has the advantages of both elements, having no or almost no disadvantages, giving great control over the primal elements and advantages when using a mixed element. Well, I wonder on the basis of what basic elements the element of ice is formed. After all, this is her. Am I right? Surely this is exactly so. Haku was able to dodge most of the shuriken, but some of it was protected by an ice disc formed in the air, which was immediately shattered by a Kato-infused kunai fired by Sasuke, which the young Nuke-nin dodged. Next came the exhaustion of the enemy with the help of remote attacks. Although a little later we switched to more coordinated work and the effectiveness of attacks became higher. Flying next to each other, I cover Sasuke with my body, creating a fireball technique, infusing it with more chakra than Sasuke currently has, and launching it at Haku from a fairly close range. He does not have time to dodge, therefore he exposes a wide ice mirror in front of him. But at this moment, one after another, 3 kunais fly through the fireball, passing through it, saturated with fire to the lid. The first kunai did not break through the mirror, but the second one managed to break it, but did not break it, getting stuck and partially melting it, but the third went through the mirror, almost reaching Haku, but he simply dodged the unexpected kunai. Unfortunately for him, the fireball is not small and it was impossible to dodge it. Haku should have burned alive from such a technique, since the chakras in it are much larger. Haku understood this, as well as the fact that there was little chance, because he simply made a strong release of his chakra with the properties of ice, from which the fireball dissipated. And everything would have been fine, but when Haku's eyes were able to get used to the abrupt disappearance of the light source, which was the fireball, he saw only the flickering of little Hinata's hands. 16 blows to different, only Hinata herself visible points of the body and chakra system of the Nuke-nin, and he simply flies away from the blows and falls, unable to move from the pain of the blocked Teketsu. I understand him, the pain is just terrible and grows by an order of magnitude with any attempt to move once again. Even breathing hurts. We stopped for a moment. Happened. Looking at the others, I realized that the others had similar thoughts in their heads, especially my empathy was burning them. But if Sasuke almost doesn't show this outwardly, out of habit, then Hinata simply showed disbelief on his face, because Haku was really a very strong shinobi with, which is not less, if not more important, much more experience in battles. But we did it. We did. Even if not Zabuza, but his student, we were able to win. What no, but an achievement. Commentary on Part 32. Answered. Part 33. And yet, Zabuza's injury had an effect on him. Even though he endured pain in battle and moved through it with the same speed and strength as before, almost with more, but nevertheless, first Sasuke and Kakashi, thanks to the Sharingan, and then Hinata and I began to notice that pain, imperceptibly from consciousness, slightly changes movements in order to reduce it. And with every second, with every movement, these changes are more and more. This was what Kakashi took advantage of, at one point slipping through a block that was a little wider than he needed and driving the kunai into the floating ribs to the right. It seems that with this blow it was decided who would be the winner in this battle. One puncture of the Nuke-nin, and his ribs were broken, piercing the lung, and after that, the sensei also sent an electric charge through the kunai. The battle was interrupted. The swordsman leaned on his giant sword and ripped the bandages from his face with his other hand, immediately spitting up blood. It seemed that everything, victory, such a wound is fatal, but with shinobi everything is somewhat different. Where an ordinary, even the strongest person, having received a mortal wound, will last from 10 seconds to a minute, almost on one willpower, a shinobi will last twice as much at least, and with growth of strength this time increases. S-rank shinobi can fight for several minutes at full strength with a guaranteed fatal wound, if it is not a severed head or a torn-out heart. And then, the heart is needed to use elemental nin, and not for battle. Zabuza got to his feet and, grabbing his sword, dashed to Kakashi's side, attacking him, dodging and kicking, which just breaks the swordsman's knee. He falls on the other knee, and through empathy I feel his pain and anger. And also some relief when he looked at Haku. Worried about him? Quite possible. And then he sees that he is still alive. And so the battle would have ended. Zabuza had already taken too much damage to even be able to resist me. What am I? Now he and Hinata will do it in a one-on-one battle. Even now, Nuke-nin was losing strength and blood literally before his eyes. His skin was turning pale, and his posture showed that it was becoming increasingly difficult for him to hold his sword. But at that moment, when everything seemed to be over, I felt emotions. Lots of hearts of emotion. Zabuza was saying something to Kakashi-sensei, but I couldn't hear what, instead listening to the feelings of the new faces. Still, what good is my empathy? You can block it with some kind of fog technique. What with him, what without, I equally well and far feel emotions and their centers. And I didn't like their feelings. I couldn't read minds, but here are the approximate intentions at my level of empathy that I can already understand. Acceleration of the chakra in the body to the limit and a dash to Sensei and Zabuza. Naruto. What are you doing here? This is not your fight. Kakashi said. I didn't come up for battle. Zabuza-san, I think you've been betrayed. What are you talking about, boy? Barely audible, wasting the last of his strength, said the future dead man. There are now 200 mercenaries approaching here, as I understand it, led by someone who is very much looking forward to your death. I could not see who it was, but I think that very soon, if you have enough strength, you will be able to see everything for yourself. Why are you saying this? Do you want to laugh at me before I die? I don't care about you, Zabuza-san. I came closer and leaned over the Nukanin's ear, tracking his intentions so that he would not unexpectedly kill me, and whispered in my ear. I will easily kill, without the slightest doubt, both you and Haku, as well as hundreds of others like that. You mean nothing to me, and I saved Haku's life only because his death does not give me anything, even purely theoretically, unlike his life, even if the benefit from this is very illusory, but the chances are above zero. And I don't give a damn about your life, honor or anything else. But I'm willing to offer you a deal. If this really turns out to be a betrayal of you, I will destroy the traitors, but as a payment. I will take your sword. Why not do it after I'm dead? The wait is not long. Again speaking in my ear and in a whisper, I continued. Because it won't look good in the eyes of my team if I take your sword after death, but if it's payment. Ha 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 ha. Real ninja, real shinobi. The guests are already here. Just give a signal. I moved away from Zabuza and looked to where the hearths were now. And yet I was right. Betrayal. I lied to Zabuza. Partly, but he lied. My motive was not only and not so much in obtaining a sword, but in the destruction of traitors. I don't know, probably, after I formed this postulate of betrayal in myself, I subconsciously couldn't just give up on him, and any manifestation of betrayal causes me at least indignation, and most often, the same as now. At least running in different imaginary scenarios of different events showed just such results, but it was impossible to just attack the traitors of Zabuza. In fact, he is a Nukanin, and they need to be extinguished with any truth or falsehood. But this is only official. In fact, there are Nukanins who were made that way by circumstances, betrayal, and the like. And sometimes it's not even hidden. It's just so hard to kill them, the rest, at least, because they are, for the most part, good people. And they try to help. Not officially, on a personal initiative, but the shinobi of different villages for the most part do not kill such people without a compelling need, for example, if they cross certain boundaries or if they have an order to do so. And therefore, if Zabuza, even posthumously, hires me to destroy the traitors, and as payment he gives his sword, and I will unfasten so much money from the mission to the village so that the sword remains with me, since the rank of the mission is not very high, maximum B rank, due to the number of opponents, the money should be enough for me, taking into account the payment for the mission to protect Tazuna. Then Kakashi-sensei is unlikely to be against it. Yes, and missed the opportunity to get such an interesting artifact, very beckoning. Zabuza gathered himself with all his strength and, turning to me, spoke. Hey kid, you're interested in my sword, right? One of the 7 great swords of the mist. I'm offering a deal. I hire you to kill all these traitors to the last, as bloody as possible and use Kubikurabocho for this. In return, you will take this sword for yourself and do whatever you want with it. Well, how? Are you taking an order? Zabuza shouted with his last strength and almost fell. A dash, and I am next to Zabuza and take the Kubikurabocho by the handle. This is a heavy weapon, about 25 kilograms, which makes it very difficult to wield it. You either have to take into account its strong inertia, or use a lot of chakra to compensate and ignore it. Zabuza let go of the last support and fell. The last breath of air, and his chest sank already without life in the body. Well, payment received, now you need to complete the mission. Do you mind, sensei? I asked Kakashi, turning to him. Kakashi-sensei, narrowing his right eye and completely closing his left eye, looked tiredly at me, already dead Zabuza, and then looked at Gato, who had come with 200 mercenaries, after which he nodded. Act. This is your mission. I didn't need anything else, and trying to get used to Kubikurabocho, I put it on my shoulder. It's really heavy and weighs almost half of me. But even so, completely unable to handle this weapon, given its weight and inertia, I was still able to cut out all these traitors. Jerk. Be at least 5 times more. An abrupt stop and transfer of all the gained strength and speed to the hand, and through that to the sword, which makes it jump off my shoulder and describe an arc, with its sharpness and mass freely cutting into parts of the bodies of the mercenaries and separating some of the lucky ones from their heads. It would be enough for me to just use ninjutsu. A moment and everything around is flooded with the blood of the dead. Only Kubikurabocho instantly absorbs blood and is cleansed of it. 2 rapid steps forward and a new swing with more chakra in hand. This time there is not much acceleration, so you have to use your strength and chakra. Quantity beats quality. Another push and another. Sweep after stroke spawned new sources of blood, which flooded everything around. And I felt something unusual. The thought that subtly flickered in my head a couple of weeks ago came to me again. While she is far away, but I feel that by continuing, I bring her closer. Quantity beats quality only until the quality becomes overwhelming, until it moves to a new level. A shinobi strong enough is that level. We can massacre ordinary people by the thousands. And, depending on the strength, the number of hypothetically defeated ordinary people is growing almost exponentially. And all because ordinary people, no matter how many there are. The thought finally came to mind. It turned out to be so elementary, so understandable and simple that I was amazed at myself. How had I not thought of this earlier? How have others not thought of this before? Especially the Irenes. Those in general should have understood everything a very long time ago. They are just people. Just one moment, I need to focus. I'm sorry, Sabuza, but I will not partially fulfill your desire. Kubikurabocho can wait, everything is too important for me right now. I don't know how it happens with other shinobi who create new ninjutsu techniques, how they give the techniques their names, but when I formed an idea in my head, the name was born in my subconscious instantly. Ketsueki Jutsu, Kaiho. I said, subconsciously making my job easier. In fact, all the work was done by direct control, but psychologically it was easier to use the technique by saying the name. The reflex worked. There was no reflex here. I am using this technique for the first time, which I just invented, but still it was easier to do it with pronouncing the name, setting myself in the right mood than without it. A moment later, the bodies of the remaining enemies in a concentric circle, a wave that radiated invisibly from me, which can only be seen from above, began to explode. Just explode. Without fire. Their bodies were torn from the inside, scattering small pieces of the body in drops of blood throughout the area. And I stood in the middle of it all with the seal of concentration folded and leaning my elbow on Kubikurabocho. And it seemed to me that the sword began to experience pleasure. I looked around and nodded to myself, completely covered from head to toe in crimson blood. They are just pathetic, ordinary people. Commentary on Part 33. Yes. This chapter is a little longer. And the second chapter will not be today. We have a holiday here and I slept all day. Sleep in the day. What by years? Did he come up with a new technique? Rather, he simply gave a name to the action that he performed. Fixed in memory this action under this label. After this, allow the technique to be transferred to unconscious use. What did Naruto do? But I won't say. The chapter has the name of the new technique, which fully describes what the hell happened. Whoever has the perseverance will somehow manage to translate. But no, well, then wait for explanations in other chapters. Best wishes. Thank you all for the fish. All to new prod. Dima was here. There was Nemaniel. There was a cat. Part 34. Silently jumping from branch to branch of giant trees, everyone in our team was thinking about something different. Kakashi-sensei looked at me at times in bewilderment, while in his feelings flashed a certain concern and suspicion of something that he sincerely feared. And he waited, being in constant tension. Sasuke, instead, experienced some conflicting feelings. He was a little afraid of me, not understanding what came over me then when I killed 200 people so bloodily alone. At the same time, he saw how I became stronger, and this made him happy. And so there were a lot of emotions that contradicted each other. In general, all of Sasuke's emotions were blunted, very weak. I felt them, but barely. Hinata was my biggest concern. She was afraid of me. Panic, fear. Every time she looked at me, she literally drowned in fear and panic, as well as in the misunderstanding that occupied her all the time in between panic and fear. And it was to her that I decided to approach during a short halt for rest. Hinata had just checked the area with the Byakugan as I walked towards her. I approached quietly, after which, without words, I simply hugged her from behind and, after waiting a few seconds for the terrifying panic and fear to subside a little, I decided to start a conversation. "Why are you afraid of me?" I asked in a calm voice. "And Naruto, no," she began to stutter. "You're afraid." "I feel fear, and indeed any negative emotions, especially if they are directed at me. I also feel positive emotions, albeit not as good as bad ones, but still. Why do you think I always try to please you and embarrass you? Because in these moments you experience the most beautiful bouquet of feelings and emotions that I have ever felt with you. I really like it when you rejoice. At these moments you become especially beautiful and sweet, and the sincerity of these emotions makes me happy. When you rejoice, I rejoice. Right now you're tense, but that's okay, you can put it down to a mission, and you're also afraid. Panically afraid of me. And it hurts me. I never did anything bad to you, I always wanted and tried to cheer you up and make you happy, to make sure that everything was fine with you. And I felt that. How do you love me? It's because of what I did on the bridge, right?" I asked, knowing that I was right. "Why yes, Naruto, sorry." I stopped her from continuing again. "You know, Hinata, I'll tell you something. I'm an orphan, which you probably already know, and I don't know who my parents are. I have no idea. They left me nothing of themselves that could tell me something about them. They died or they left me, it doesn't matter. They failed in their parental duty, they betrayed me. Maybe I'm exaggerating, maybe I'm too cruel to those who already gave me life, but that doesn't change the fact that they abandoned me. On my own or not of my own free will, I do not know, and therefore everything is one for me. And I lived my entire childhood as an outcast. No one talked to me, adults, for the most part, hated me, twice I was on the verge of death because of the beatings of these old bastards. But no one interfered. And I, lying after in the hospital, wondered. Especially after the second time I saw, it seemed death itself with white hair. I wondered if my parents, whoever they were, didn't have friends, relatives, good colleagues, nobody who could take care of me. I didn't want much. At least just a normal meal in the evenings, then I would not even leave the house so as not to feel all that anger of almost all the inhabitants of Konoha. But nobody. No one helped me, either before the Shinobi Academy, neither during nor after. I had to survive in my native village as if I were in the midst of enemies. The first good news was Sasuke. We were able to get along with him. Shino. He's weird, but he's a good guy. And you. Hinata, you are the only one from whom I felt such wonderful feelings, and even directed at me. Not just indifference, as with many, and not feelings that I perceive in one word, friendship. No, then even though I did not understand it right away, for the first time I felt those feelings that I can interpret now as sympathy, even a little love. And then not a little. You're the first one to show me this, Hinata. While the rest only betrayed me and felt hatred, or ignored me with a degree of disdain. Parents betrayed. Their friends betrayed Maria. And if they did not have enough good friends or acquaintances, then what kind of parents were they? I hated the very essence of betrayal. It disgusts me. And quite recently I was able to understand this. Then, on the bridge, despite the fact that Zabuza was a nuke-nin, he had his people close to him, like the same Haku, and he was a shinobi. And he was betrayed. They wanted to deceive and finish off all of us after some of us killed others and we weakened. They were traitors. The quintessence of everything I hate the most. And, when I received a deal offer from Zabuza, I gladly accepted this order to destroy these traitors. The sword was a nice addition. All that I felt for traitorous parents and their friends, I poured out of myself on the bridge. All the malice, rage and hatred, all of this I used. I wanted to make everything as brutal and bloody as possible, so that it would forever be imprinted in my head. But you don't have to be afraid of me, Hinata. I will never, ever hurt you. Just not for you. Therefore, I ask you, I hold Hinata closer to me and continue, I beg you, do not be afraid of me. Just not you. Rage and hatred, all of which I used. I wanted to make everything as brutal and bloody as possible, so that it would forever be imprinted in my head. But you don't have to be afraid of me, Hinata. I will never, ever hurt you. Just not for you. Therefore, I ask you, I hold Hinata closer to me and continue, I beg you, do not be afraid of me. Just not you. Rage and hatred, all of which I used. I wanted to make everything as brutal and bloody as possible, so that it would forever be imprinted in my head. But you don't have to be afraid of me, Hinata. I will never, ever hurt you. Just not for you. Therefore, I ask you, I hold Hinata closer to me and continue, I beg you, do not be afraid of me. Just not you. I sensed that she was in turmoil. Now those messages of embarrassment that I liked so much began to emerge in her again. And the fear was gone. My empathy is not only the feeling of emotions, but also the ability to express my emotions to others. And Hinata felt, although she did not realize that I was not lying and only telling the truth, she felt how dear to me and how far I was ready to go to protect her. She was the first and still the only one who loved me. While everyone hated, she did not understand where this hatred came from. She loved me, although at first it was only sympathy, even before the academy. And with that, she bought me. Fully. Until the end. I will not harm her and will destroy anyone who does. I'll grind it to dust. Blood dust. Hinata stopped shaking with fear and relaxed. Fine. The end of the halt, it's time to move on. Kakashi-sensei shouted. Commentary on Part 34. Answered. Part 35. In the village began the trial. Who, how, why? Especially at the end they hit me. What right did he have to accept a mission? Yes, and from a Chunin. And there were many such questions. Then I was taken to the Hokage. A strange old man, to be honest, in terms of the fact that I can't read his intentions by emotions. No, I feel his hearth of emotions, the emotions themselves, but my conclusions about his intentions are constantly proven wrong. What is this? Experience, or is it some kind of protection? Does he know about my empathy abilities? In principle, I did not hide them, but I tried not to tell everyone about them all the time, or even sometimes to keep silent. But I wouldn't be surprised if he knows about my abilities. The Hokage was especially interested in whether I would like to receive for my sword, and it is mine by right, a sum of money. A rather big one, I confess, but I always refused. And not because I didn't like the old man, but for the simple reason that the sword itself is interesting to me and now I don't want to give it away. But finally we were released from the Hokage administration, and we had 3 days of rest. 3 days of doing nothing. Fuck there. The first thing I did was create 20 clones that went on pre-planned tasks. Nin's workouts. The development of the elements. Also, one went to Deguta-sensei in the hospital, where the study of Haku's Kekki-Igenkai was about to begin. Yes, Kakashi-sensei decided to deliver this shinobi with a rare gene to Konoha, and then let them decide what to do. And now the blood samples should be delivered to the hospital soon. I'm not a full-fledged physician, control is bad for this, but I'm enough to work with genes, because here more equipment and printing are needed, everything is already ready, as well as the head. And here is the last, I dare to hope, I have. So Deguta will most likely take the opportunity and give me a theoretical test of genetic knowledge in practice with Haku's genetic samples. Here is the theoretical benefit. When I distributed the tasks, and everyone dispersed, the clones, there was only one left, the last one. He has a special task, training with blood. Suiton is not only water management. Among this section of elemental techniques, there are also techniques using jelly, mucus, oil, glue, and so on. And all this applies to Suiton. But it's not all water. These are liquids. And that, in some cases, is very conditional. And, seeing that bloody puddle for the first time, it served as the first wake-up call to understand that blood is a liquid. It's the same liquid. So why not take it under control? The second time I was able to catch this thought and reinforce it was when I killed more than 20 people Kobikurabocho. Then I realized that I felt not only the water under the bridge. I realized that I could feel the liquid that was spilled around. Feel the blood that flows in the bodies of those people. And then, when this thought was conscious, I realized that even though blood is not water and it can be controlled many times harder, I can take control of it. Ordinary people have an extremely poorly developed SCS. But its development also shows how high external influence a shinobi can survive or completely ignore. And the more development, the more you can resist any external influences on you. Therefore, the strongest shinobi can break through rocks with their bodies and grab ordinary weapons with their bare hands by the blade, as well as ignore fairly strong techniques. Ordinary people, in general, are almost incapable of providing any resistance. And therefore, to take their blood under control, albeit weak, was relatively simple. And after that, just free the blood from the shackles of the body, which was accompanied by an explosion of bodies. But with the same genin, this will not work. At least for now, while my blood control is low, it's not even worth thinking about. I needed the last clone in order to go in search of blood. Yes, it is blood, because it is what I need to learn to control now. I myself went to my favorite clearing, where I began to perform the usual set of exercises. Circle after circle. 10 after 10. 100 after 100. It's good to be back to normal. The next day everything happened again, but when I finished recovering after all the circles for the second time, I began to practice with a new weapon. Kobikurabocho is a difficult weapon to handle. Incorrect handling. Everyone can swing it like a club, and I demonstrated it on the bridge as well. But I didn't want this, therefore, having created a dozen temporary clones, I started the battle. They attack and I defend with my sword as best I can. The training tactics are long and painstaking, clumsy, but reliable. It was said at the academy, though quickly and as if by chance, that by learning to fight in this way, you do it much longer, mistakes are found longer, but experience is gained ahead of knowledge and therefore, acquiring knowledge in the process, you can already apply them. It's not like you gained knowledge in training, but you still don't know how to apply it in real combat. It is best, of course, to use two methods at once, but I cannot find a kenjutsu teacher for myself. Alas, why do I need a sword? I'm good at ninjutsu, since shadow clones and chakra volumes contribute to this, at least I'm good at taijutsu too. So why spray on kenjutsu as well, and everything is just impossible. I want to take advantage of everything possible. One such advantage is my huge progress in water control and more fire control, as well as air control starting to grow, although I did not pay much attention to it, the air element technician was almost impossible to find. Direct water control is getting better and better for me, and there are more and more techniques that I can use without seals, as I simply transfer printing techniques to control ones. And if so, then I will not need both hands for seals in the end. Taijutsu, you say? Perhaps, but kenjutsu in this regard seems to me more promising, and even if I am deprived of the sword, taijutsu will remain in reserve. Do I take on a lot? Spraying? I do not argue. Perhaps if I had devoted all my time to taijutsu, I would not have needed any sword. But I already devote to the sword and I'm going to devote the evenings, leaving the rest to body training. That would have continued. I would train in the morning and in the afternoon with my body, the clones would train the chakra, control, elements and blood that the clone decided to take from animals, since the slaughterhouse was in Konoha, and it was not difficult to train quietly not far from it. But I was interrupted by a call to the Hokage. I wonder what else the old man wanted from me. Would you like to reprimand me for what I did on the bridge? Oh well. Having created clones in the morning, he sent them to his classes, and he himself went to the Hokage. Commentary on Part 35. He. Kukuku. Mwahaha. Bugagagaga. Answered. Part 36. Arriving at the Hokage residence was a quick matter. Especially if you've been here more than once. Inside, no one paid any attention to me, although in the emotions of some of them I felt hostility towards me, but there were surprisingly few of them, mostly there was a little neglect, or complete disregard. Approaching Hiruzen's office, I looked expectantly at the secretary, to which they nodded at the door, saying, "Come in, they are already waiting for you." As soon as I went inside, I immediately caught my eye on Kakashi-sensei. I wonder if he forgot which one. In addition, in the office I felt a lot more people than usual. Usually there are 2 or 3 hiding in the shadows, maximum shinobi, something like bodyguards and messengers of the Hokage. Now in the office, in addition to me and sensei with the Hokage, there were 7 more shinobi, and they all experienced excitement, apprehension, anxiety, and many similar spectrums of feelings. Kakashi looked at me without taking his eyes off, only Hiruzen looked at me with a smile with his narrowed eyes from under a diamond-shaped straw hat. Passing and standing in the middle of the room, right in front of the Hokage's desk, in front of the huge window, I bowed, as befits etiquette. Although I don't like him very much, but you never know what's the matter, since so many shinobi are stuffed into the room. I was silent and did not say anything, standing and looking into the eyes of Hiruzen. At that moment, I did not want him to feel or read in his eyes, and they say that experienced shinobi can do this, my not the most positive attitude towards him. Therefore, I forcibly crushed and almost completely extinguished my hearth of emotions. To do this is simple, but it is quite difficult to constantly maintain it in this state. I looked into his eyes calmly, occasionally only blinking and not looking away. Finally, Hiruzen probably decided not to waste time, and therefore spoke first. "Naruto, tell me how you feel," he asked me. "How do I feel?" "Yes, just wonderful. There are no injuries and bruises, no fatigue, since I have not even trained yet," which the Hokage informed about. "Oh, forgive the old man that he tore you off training. I'm just worried about what happened on the bridge then. Tell me, at that moment you did not experience some unreasonable rage, anger, bloodlust, something like that? Didn't you feel that you were starting to move on your own, with absolutely no control over your movements?" Yes, these are strange questions. Why would he be so interested? Have I experienced such emotions? Naturally. More than ever before. But it was all completely justified. No, Hokage-sama, no unreasonable rage or anything like that. I just killed them all. That was the task. Order. I fulfilled it. Received a well-deserved salary. Nothing more. The Hokage looked at Kakashi and then returned his gaze to me, after which he took a deep breath and continued to speak. "You know, Naruto, we talked to your sensei, and I came to the conclusion that it would be worth telling you about your parents." I turned to Kakashi sensei and looked at him. At that time, he was looking at something in the window behind the Hokage and it was as if I were not here yet. So he somehow overheard my conversation with Hinata. But she and I had our backs to the rest, so he couldn't read my lips, we were on the leeward side, so it was unlikely that he could hear us. How did he know then? Hinata told. No, it's hypothetically possible, but I don't want to believe it categorically. He immediately sent one of the shadow clones, who are training in the elements of water, to Hinata. Our chakra connection is constant, and I can send short commands like this without hindrance. The next question that interests me is to him, did he hear everything? If yes, then it becomes, in part, understandable why there are additional shinobi. But why so many? Or, are they afraid of something? That unknown technique I used on the bridge. After all, no one knows this technique, most likely. Or something else. I can't even beat Kakashi myself, now. A little later, 4 or 5 months, maybe. And that's not a fact. And what do you want to tell me about those who left me to suffer in the orphanage? I asked. Naruto, you shouldn't talk about your parents like that. You don't know them, they. Of course I don't know them, Hokage-sama, because I had no way to find out anything about them. Naruto. I beg you, don't interrupt. Let me finish. Your parents were 2 wonderful people. Your mother is Uzumaki Kushina, a very strong kunoichi, no less, if not more powerful, than your father, whose name is Namikaze Minato. I think you know this name, Namikaze Minato. Familiar name. The 4th Hokage, the hero of the 3rd Shinobi World War, known as the Yellow Lightning of Konoha, who single-handedly inflicted devastating damage to the enemy. Are you talking about him? Are you saying that I am this man's son? That's right, Naruto. And your parents didn't abandon you. On the day you were born, your mother, who was the Jinchuriki of the 9-tailed fox demon, the strongest of all Bijus, burst forth a demon. She kept him for many years, but at the time of childbirth, someone attacked the village, committing sabotage, and thus weakened the seal, which finally restrained the demon. The demon escaped and began to destroy Konoha. Your father and mother sacrificed themselves in order to save the lives of all those who lived in Konoha, and used the strongest, forbidden techniques, after which they sealed the part of the fox in you, Naruto. Unfortunately, they themselves died in the process. Your parents are heroes. And you were supposed to become the same, but the clans decided that it would be wrong if you were raised by a certain clan, even individual, non-clan friends of your parents, so it was decided that you will live and grow among the inhabitants of Konoha, to know their life, to understand them, to understand that they need to be protected, that you need to become stronger. Naruto. Can you hear me? Naruto. Old Hiruzen said something more and more, and at that time I tried to gather all my thoughts together. Tell me, I interrupted the Hokage. Konoha, after all, was originally a formation that was a cluster of all allied clans in one place. And it is the clans, in fact, that ensure the existence of Konoha. They are Konoha, right? Konoha is the clans that live in it. Right. And my parents had many friends, allies, became famous as the heroes of Konoha. They had teachers and, perhaps, students. They had students, didn't they? I asked. Hiruzen didn't answer, but, probably unwittingly, his gaze flickered to Kakashi for a moment. Really, you? I asked, turning to Sensei. Kakashi didn't answer or even move, completely frozen. I felt shock in the emotions of many of those present. They didn't know who I was either. More precisely, whose son I am. And again in my head the porridge, from which I singled out the main thing. The monster that is sealed in me is the bijou, the strongest of them, or rather, half of them, and the second, most likely, either in the father or in the mother. I didn't need to know anything more. I've had enough for today. I learned enough today to think about and reconsider a lot. Turning to the exit, I calmly walked away, looking at the floor. Naruto, where are you? The Hokage asked me. Practice, Hiruzen-sama. Get stronger. I swear by everything that I have, I will become stronger, at least for the sake of my parents. Nobody bothered me, probably the old man stopped them, felt something in their emotions, although he did not pay attention now. I left the residence and headed to the closed Uchiha training ground, and not to the usual clearing. There is a lot to think about and let off steam. Commentary on Part 36. PB, eyes stick together, so if you missed something, don't make a big noise in the comments, write in a PM. PB, and my eyes would be so glued together that, even after 3 months after the calculation, I would not miss a single mistake, except for a couple of punctuation ones. PB, cat readability improved. Answered. Part 37. 3 days. For 3 days I had to visit the Hokage and his administration in order to ask new questions, which unexpectedly revealed more and more knowledge to me. I'm not sure that Hiruzen hasn't shifted his focus somewhere, even I did it on the same bridge when I agreed with Zabuza. But after killing myself in training, after all these conversations, lying on the ground, feeling all sorts of tissues in my body regenerate, I could put aside everything and think over all the words of the old man completely without emotion. No. My parents are not traitors. They didn't betray me. They themselves fell victim to betrayal. Village betrayals. Konoha's betrayals. The one that was supposed to protect them. Betrayals of friends, acquaintances, students and teachers. Everyone. They all betrayed their father and mother. My father, the fourth Hokage, Namikaze Minato, the hero of war, one of the most dangerous shinobi in the world, the one who was feared by all the other villages, was betrayed by what he fought for, gave his all. Why is that? The father knew that at the time of childbirth, the seal holding the nine-tailed demon fox might loosen so much that it could break out. And the escaped bijou means the death of the Jinchuriki. The father kept the place and time of birth in the strictest confidence. He created many barriers and surrounded the place with dozens of seals. I was shown where this place was. And I still felt faint echoes of chakra there. Barely noticeable. But so much time has passed. And yet, at the most crucial moment, someone went through all the protection without disturbing it, and staged a diversion. As a result, the bijou escaped. Although my mother managed to survive, she was so strong that she was even able to continue fighting. She was able to help her father save those who betrayed them. And, in the end, the father used some kind of forbidden technique that is associated with the god of death, Shinigami, that divided the nine tails and his power into 2 parts. One part was sealed in the father, and his soul remained forever in the stomach of the god of death, but in the last moments of life, they sealed the remaining half of the monster inside me. They, at the cost of their lives, saved me, saved the village. A village full of traitors. And how did they answer them? They again played their intrigues. I found myself surrounded by hatred among the children of the orphanage, many of whom lost their parents due to the fault of the escaped Biju, and adults think, for some reason, that I am a new incarnation of the demon fox. Idiocy? Undoubtedly. But that's the way it is. I've lived all my life in a village filled with traitors. Every resident. All of them, with such rare exceptions, which have not yet been made so. Shino, Sasuke, Hinata. I have not met anyone else who would be at least neutral towards me. Even Shikamaru Nara has a slight negative, he seems to be a representative of the smartest clan, or something like that, and yet thoughts about me as a demon managed to settle in his head. These three simply ignored such thoughts and were at least neutral towards me. My father and mother were wonderful people who were able to forgive the village and its inhabitants, or stupid that they did not realize the betrayal, or the circumstances were such that it was impossible to do otherwise. But I'm not like that. I will not forgive betrayal. I went to the old man for 3 days to find out new information. I asked about details, acquaintances, friends, teachers, more specifically about the teacher. Learned a lot. Including the fact that I have a godfather. Funny. I understand that our world is built on the blood, bones, flesh and pain of enemies and friends. Our world is the cruelest place I can imagine. To understand this, it is enough to briefly observe the children of ordinary people, not shinobi. Then, when we learn to kill, they have fun and play. When we complete tasks and cut enemies with blades, kill opponents, become machines for destroying enemy forces, they start their first relationships, make friends, run around, live carefree lives, preparing to soon do business to take care of their future family. And then they will have children. What about shinobi? We are killers. Monsters that will destroy the target anyway. And I understand that care for such monsters means little. But what I firmly believe in is the weight of the commitment. If you promise something, do it. I swore, fulfill the oath. Keep your word, if not in spirit, so at least in a word. There is nothing more for shinobi. Money, we can earn them quickly and in large quantities, steal, rob. It's not the same as ordinary people's money. Life? How easily can we take it away? Depending on the individual qualities of the shinobi, but simple. The only thing we have left is the word. You gave your word, keep it. Otherwise, there is nothing left for you. Only a monster. And the monsters must be destroyed. Even if you are a monster yourself. And the monsters must be destroyed. Even if you are a monster yourself. And the monsters must be destroyed. Even if you are a monster yourself. After the 3rd day, I stopped visiting the Hokage. I have nothing more to learn from him. I already understood the most important thing that I need to know. I don't know what Hiruzen and the others were counting on when they decided to tell me everything, but in fact my opinion, although it has changed, is not the opposite. It just got stronger and shifted focus a bit. I understand. My home is not at all. My native village is not my home. This is not a place where I can relax. This is not a place where I can rest. With the rarest exception, this is nothing but a place where I am surrounded. Enemies. Commentary on Part 37. It's a kick-ass, folks, just a kick-ass. I'm sorry to say this to you, but I have to speak my mind. I knew that the thinking of the authorities in a power educational institution is very far from the earth, but revenge puddles in the downpour for 2.5 hours. So that the foreman comes out and says, why haven't the puddles been removed yet? Today means we will go to bed an hour later, since you don't feel like sleeping. It's not the first time, but, oh my god, how does this melt the brain? There was one mustachioed bat. And the second mustachioed bat was also here. Answered. Part 38. Such a seemingly simple idea. But how much does she carry in herself? When you think that you are at home, you rest, relax, rejoice, you become not a killing machine, but a normal person with your own overtures, problems, needs, personal life and so on. Like you're a normal person, but when you are in the camp of the enemy, surrounded by your enemies, by will or not by will, understanding it or not, you subconsciously become more tense, even hiding it perfectly, behaving like an ordinary person, internally, psychologically you are tense, you calculate your every step, every movement, you work through every word in a conversation. At least that's what those who can do it do. And I began to behave in the same way, without realizing it. More precisely, I realized this when my nameless taijutsu teacher told me about it. He noticed that I became more constrained, more tense. And this interferes with learning, albeit not too much. Then I understood it. By analyzing myself. Your actions. And relaxed. Physically, but not mentally. In training, I took out all my hatred for the villagers, putting it into every movement. At first, anger almost took over my mind, but it stopped me from setting up a full-fledged meat grinder on the streets of Konoha, the anxiety that I felt from the spies. After some time, I was able to concentrate immediately after such an attack and realized that along with a flash of rage and hatred in my chakra system, the share of the poisonous chakra of the nine-tailed Biju increased, more precisely, half of it. And, returning back, part of it remained circulating in me, increasing the proportion of permanent chakra by hundredths of a percent with each attack. This made me understand something else. Realize. I am a weapon. Village weapons. A walking monster that can destroy enemies if things get really bad. And that explained a lot of what was happening to me. Why was I not given to any clan for education? Not even my godfather took me under guardianship. Why do my observers get nervous during my emotional outbursts? They are afraid that the monster will break out of me. I don't know how, but I'm sure it's possible, because the monster's chakra penetrates me through the seal, so why can't the monster itself, which consists of this chakra, be able to escape? But he needs external help, which is my emotions. Negative emotions. I felt a little more relaxed at the Uchiha training grounds and with Hinata, Shino. When I'm with them, the observers leave. They don't enter clan territory. I think this is due to the fact that Hinata and Shino can detect them, because one has a Byakugan, and the second uses the ubiquitous bugs. With them I go out to deserted places and rest there. There I relax almost completely. Only on the very edge of his tension was kept. Hinata noticed that something was wrong with me, but she avoided this topic, for which I am grateful to her. I didn't want to lie to her, but also tell her about my attitude towards the village. I believe her, but if it turns out that Hinata knew such information about me and didn't say anything, it could be very bad for her. And I don't want to risk her health and life in this way. With Sasuke, our sparring became more and more large-scale and serious. I continued to develop in taijutsu, in skill, although I did not reach Sasuke's level in this, but at the same time I also surpassed him in physical parameters. And Sasuke had to come up with new ways to get around this difference between us. He practiced techniques to automatism, began to actively master the element of lightning, in which he found a high predisposition. He came up with new tricks, he did everything to surpass me, and I did everything to stay ahead. We both liked it, although it irritated the Uchiha a lot. This gave a constant incentive to develop, an incentive to become stronger. Just as he got stronger to get past me, so I got stronger so as not to go down from the first position. And I have to admit again that Sasuke is a genius. I use clones all the time. There are many clones in order to train and practice techniques to such a level that I can complete them even without seals. I increase my affinity with the elements, and in this, especially in the field of water, I surpassed Sasuke by a head, if not two, while in fire, he only slightly bypassed me, while lightning was given to him almost as easily as water to me. He becomes stronger and faster with each of our fights, while practicing techniques and using them better and better. And doing all this, one. Occasionally, he uses one shadow clone, but very rarely and no more than one. And at the same time, he continues to stay on the same level with me. Isn't that a sign that he's a genius? Even his chakra volumes are growing very quickly, without reducing control. In 1 month, its volume has quadrupled. It's clear that he is still far from a Jonin, at least a few years at this pace of development, and even longer before me. I myself cannot accurately estimate my volumes, because even by creating a shadow clone I make it much richer and stronger, more durable, and so on, investing out of habit almost an order of magnitude more chakra than necessary. And yet I can create more than 200 clones with this saturation. His clone is the same order of magnitude less saturated than mine, and he creates one. He can support it constantly, since the restoration of the chakra allows him to do this, but no more. So compare what is called. And yet I can create more than 200 clones with this saturation. His clone is the same order of magnitude less saturated than mine, and he creates one. He can support it constantly, since the restoration of the chakra allows him to do this, but no more. So compare what is called. And yet I can create more than 200 clones with this saturation. His clone is the same order of magnitude less saturated than mine, and he creates one. He can support it constantly, since the restoration of the chakra allows him to do this, but no more. So compare what is called. My blood workouts were more than effective. It was much more difficult to control than water, but on the other hand, when I did nothing for several days except work with blood, even connected every single clone to it, after that I found the opposite effect of this in relation to water. Normal. Compared to blood, it was much easier to master, which I felt when I returned to separate training, and some of the clones began to train direct water control again. I didn't talk to Kakashi. Not because I was offended by him or something like that. No resentment that you can be offended by people you love. And Kakashi-sensei is the same as the rest, an enemy and a traitor. And I just had nothing to ask him. And talk. However, I carried out, in the form of clones, the missions that we needed to carry out. Remarkably, they did not let us out of the village again. All missions were only inside the territory of Konoha. Relations between our team and Kakashi-sensei were somewhat tense. My teammates saw that I did not treat him very well, but without understanding, trusting me out of habit, they adopted the same attitude. It upset Kakashi, but I didn't care. Betrayed once, betrayed and twice, nothing will stop you. And I did not want people dear to me to trust a person like him. And all the more unexpected was the fact that Kakashi approached us the next day, said that there would be no missions yet, and suggested that we, as it were, take part in the Chunin exam instead. Everyone said they would, including me. And I really thought, that's just about whether I need it. And then I thought about something else. Everything is decided by chance. A small detail, the appearance or absence of which in a person's life becomes decisive on his path. It can be anything from an ordinary pebble on the road to a glimpse. It happened to me as well. Just at that moment, when I was thinking about the Chunin exams, when I couldn't stand being in this trader village, I glanced fleetingly, for a moment, at the Hokage mountain. Namely, on the face of the fourth. My father. Previously, it did not cause me any special thoughts, but right now it caused a small path of associative connections that flowed from one to another. And when I thought about all this, I went to the Hokage's residence. I needed to understand what would decide my future fate. What it will be, I don't know, I can't even imagine, but it was clear to me that my fate depends on what happens in the next hour. I just felt it. Understood. Realized. I got to the residence quickly enough, although I did not move faster than a normal pedestrian. During the last visits of the old man on questions, the local working staff seemed to remember me and therefore let me pass without delay. So it was when I asked the Hokage questions that interested me, no one detained me, no one interfered. Perhaps this was a special decree of Hiruzen, the Biju knows him. But it works even now, although almost 4 weeks have passed since my last visit. I made it to the office unhindered. There was no line, so I immediately went to the door and, after knocking politely, opened the door, stepping inside. Hello, Naruto. You haven't been in for a long time. Probably thinking about everything he learned about his parents and not only, right? Hiruzen spoke first. He went on talking and talking, constantly changing intonations of voice, topics, until, finally, he noted that I was silent and did not react in any way. Naruto, forgive the old man, something I started talking, you probably want to ask questions, don't you? He finally gave me his word. I didn't say anything and continued to stand motionless, trying in my head to form the questions I would like to ask. I guess my silence was getting longer as I began to feel unease from the shinobi around us in the shadows. I want to be given all my inheritance, everything that my father, Namikaze Minato, and my mother, Uzumaki Kushina, owned. Money, land, technology, information, everything. After all, I am their only heir and I have the right to it, right? I asked Hiruzen. Brazenly. Agree. Probably even too much. But this is probably the only way I have come up with at the moment to understand how Hiruzen feels about me and about his intentions in relation to me. I can't read his intentions directly. But now I will try to do it differently. There was silence again. I felt Hiruzen's emotions and feelings. He felt uneasy, a little uneasy, but then there was a sense of insight and he was relieved. I'm sorry, Naruto, but at the time of the fox's attack, all of his heritage was destroyed. However, we will try to look in the bins of libraries and warehouses. Perhaps there is something left of your parents. But this will not happen soon. I felt his emotions and feelings. And felt that he was lying. Well, that's exactly what I wanted to know. That the old man is no better than the rest. So, except for my 3 friends, there is not a single person dear to me in the village. Thank you, Hiruzen-sama. Thank you for your help. I turned around and walked towards the door. Naruto, is that all you wanted to ask? He called after me. Yes. I don't need anything else. It's time for me to study for the Chunin exams. This, after all, is a very important stage in the life of every shinobi. And especially mine. That's why I think you need to prepare very painstakingly. That's right, Naruto, that's right. Just don't overdo it. You should be full of strength to demonstrate the will of fire. Necessarily. I will demonstrate. Will. Fire. Commentary on Part 38. Thanks for the fish, Mysterious Anonymous. For you, this chapter came out ahead of schedule, although it was planned for tomorrow. For you, this chapter is a little longer, although it was planned to be half as much. Hope everyone enjoys it. And yes, the end of the arc is coming soon. Psst, boy, do you want some sloppy text? Answered. Part 39. Epilogue. Are you sure we're not being followed? Sasuke asked in a whisper as he approached me standing on a huge tree branch. I do not feel any source of emotions in the entire radius of my perception. Hinata can't see anyone with her Byakugan either. Even if we are being followed, we cannot notice this, we can only reconcile ourselves for the time being. The Uchiha nodded at my words and sat down on a branch. Are you sure it's worth it? Sasuke asked me. I'm not sure if it will work. Probably not, but I hope everything goes well. But is it worth it? I don't know about you. You, Sasuke, don't have to leave. It's better for Hinata not to know what I'm going to do for her own good. I don't want her to be labeled a traitor either. Besides, she has a family. Clan. Sister, what is there? This is me, an orphan, a living weapon of the village, the last word in any conflict, a scarecrow, roughly speaking. I hate these creatures. And I don't want to live among them. I heard you, Naruto. I understand you, but how will she react to that? Sasuke said, nodding his head at Hinata, who was sitting a few branches down and to the side. I don't know. I closed my eyes and tried to imagine various options for Hinata's reaction, but none of the invented options seemed realistic and plausible to me. It's hard for me to understand how Hinata will react to this. Get mad at me, hate me, or believe in me, despite the fact that I did not warn her about anything. The worst thing is that she, like Shino, will think of me, just like that. It all started with the fact that I met with each of our team number 8 and informed them that I wanted to take part in the Chunin exams. Sasuke had no doubts about it. Hinata decided to go to the exam as soon as she found out about my decision, although before that she had doubts and could not decide what to do. With Hinata and Sasuke, we began to train at his training grounds, where we could calmly talk and train anything. Probably almost anything, but so far we haven't done anything out of the ordinary, in terms of scale. Hinata went to her room accompanied by me when it started to get dark, but after that I returned to the training ground, where Sasuke practiced lightning techniques and even tried to create something of his own. And the Biju knows him, whether he succeeds or not. Emotions also do not say anything, they are very contradictory. It seems that there are successes, but there seems to be nothing to brag about. We have been training with him. Mostly taijutsu, but they also worked with melee weapons. I continued to master the Kobikuribocho while Sasuke took up the katana. It seems that the mass is incommensurable, but still our battles are protracted. And after that, after a while, I told Sasuke that I wasn't going to live in Konoha. That I'm leaving. And where are you going? If everything you said is true, then wherever you go, everywhere you will be perceived only as a weapon. Scarecrow. And you probably won't find a better place. Maybe him. He said. And it made me think. Indeed, where would I go? Any hidden village will treat me the same, if not worse. If that's true, then I won't go anywhere. All I need will be, which is not much at all, a quiet place for training, a source of food and water, and there, to the Biju missions, battles, ahead of time. Training and development. Solitude, calmness, without the environment of these scum that live a few hundred meters away from me, without this constant anger, thirst for blood and death, recently it has become especially strong. I don't understand why this would be, but I became much easier to wind up. It's harder for me to contain the rage and hatred inside me, it's harder not to let myself tear all these traitors to pieces with my own hands or with the active help of Kobikurabocho. And the longer I am among those whom I hate with all my heart, the harder it is to resist. And what, will you become a hermit shinobi? The Uchiha asked me, why not? So, what is next? What then? So you will live your whole life in the forest, in the mountains, on the islands or somewhere else? Oh no, the only thing I need in a hermitage is time. To become stronger and return here to Konoha. Revenge? She's the best. Somewhere I once heard, or read, that revenge is a dish that is served cold. I think this will be exactly the case. I'll come here to take Hinata, get revenge on everyone, and explain myself to Shino. Still, I'll do the worst to him. You are so sure that you can escape, do you already have a plan? Plan? I don't have a plan yet. I only know that I'm going to leave at the exam. I looked at notes about what happened in previous exams. Despite the different villages and the tasks themselves, the general essence remained the same. The first is a test of intelligence, ingenuity, or determination, the second is teamwork, survival skills and the like. The third is battles. Everyone, I understand that the second stage will be the best. My red-eyed friend understood. I think yes. Why are you telling me this? Why not? You are one of the people closest to me to whom I am ready to entrust my back in battle. You are my friend. One of many. What if I betray you? He asked an unexpected question. No, Sasuke, you're not a traitor. You are an Uchiha. And you are famous in history for your devoted friendship. Yeah, exactly, it is for its devoted friendship that the Uchiha clan is famous in the first place. Especially now, thanks to its individual members. Sasuke spoke quietly, and there was sadness in his emotions. You are not like your brother. Whoever he was, a traitor to the village or the clan, a madman who went crazy, unable to withstand all that he experienced, or he was a hero, albeit an unrecognized one, who sacrificed everything to save the clan and you in particular. But you're not like that. You are not a traitor. The village is not important to you. Friendship comes first for you. As well as for me. Sasuke's emotions began to show sadness, regret, pain and a certain amount of hysteria. Even panic. How much time has passed, and the memories of his brother, who for him personally is in an uncertain position, cause severe mental pain. In vain I touched this topic and began to develop it, disturbing carefully forgotten memories. Don't you think they can read my mind? Sasuke asked reasonably. They won't dare. These scum did not allow me to be adopted only because they were afraid that I would listen to the words of my teachers more than others, and let the last Uchiha be influenced by digging in the brains. No. You never know what these Yamanakas will wind up in your head. The other clans won't allow it, so you'll be safe, and so will your brains. As for the rest, you said that the Sharingan allows you not only to track the micromotor skills of others, but also to control your own, right? I recalled the words of a friend when he told me after one of the sparring sessions about his Sharingan. Right. It happens on its own. Even a turned-off Sharingan gives us much more control over our body, including micromotor skills, than other shinobi who do not have this skill. Do you think if I use this trick they will believe me? Why not? In thought, they will not climb to you, so micromotorics is the most reliable way. And since no one knows about it, no one will suspect you of this. Painfully we are young for such skills. In theory, and you should not have known about it, but all I, a fool, loosened my tongue after the fight. And this, by the way, is one of the clan's best-kept secrets. Sasuke was outraged. Yes, I understand everything, calm down. Understand. There was a silence in which each of us thought about something different. Do you want me to leave with you? After a couple of minutes of silence, a friend standing next to him said, when the storm of emotions in him came to naught. Ha ha ha. It would be too perfect. Yes, I would like it, but I would want too much if I really aspired to it. Your clan is here, Sasuke. Territories, finances, knowledge, past and future. Yours and your clan. It is possible that the village is to blame for the death of your clan, but you have a lot to inherit. And most of it you don't have to give up. I'm a goal. All mine will fit on me. Because, although I want it, I understand that it is too much. Is that so? You're leaving us all here. Sasuke's feelings raced like crazy. Not forever. Trust me, I will come back strong enough to take revenge and help you. You know, Naruto, Sasuke suppressed all his emotions with an effort of will, leaving only a bare sheet without feelings. Thank you. Since then, our training has become even more intense. Like the last workouts of our lives, we tried to take them to the next level. I taught Sasuke how to use the simplest medical jutsu for self-healing, and Sasuke gradually mastered these techniques, so he quickly healed himself after training and gave his best again and again. Another episode also deserves attention. I came to see Togura-senpai at the hospital. That's just now personally, and not by sending a shadow clone. During my time with him, I learned a few important things. Firstly, Togura may not be a doctor of the level of Hashirama, who became famous for this, but progress does not stand still, so inferior in strength, in the mastery of medical jutsu and medicine in general, Togura almost surpassed Hashirama. The second thing that attracted me to him at the time was his attitude towards me. It was indifferent. There were no negative or positive emotions. Calm. During all this time, Togura did not develop sympathy for me or, in extreme cases, antipathy for a too annoying student. He just didn't care. And this is one of the reasons why there are only 3 people dear to me in the village, and not 4. I previously showed sympathy for Togura-sensei, and still have deep respect and gratitude for him. But he is not one of those to whom I am ready to entrust my secrets and my back in battle. Arriving at the hospital, I passed by the hospital workers who did not pay any attention to me, who had long been accustomed to my almost daily visits. Arriving at the sensei, I laid out my thought to him without further ado. Togura-sensei, today I came for a new training routine. The old one, as you said, has been fully mastered by me and is being fully implemented. Naruto. How long have you been? I expected you to come earlier, at least for a year or 2. And even earlier. But well, if you say that you have fully mastered this simple program, then it's time for you to move on to a more complex program. Now that your physical condition has reached the right conditions, and it could not fail to reach, if you are really able to complete all the circles, then you can start these trainings. Only the first weeks try to do everything slowly. Your body needs to wean itself from the old workouts and readjust to the new ones. But due to certain traumatic exercises, out of habit, you can get severely injured. So be careful. Necessarily. Fine. And now, let's continue from where we ended the last lecture. I spent that day in the hospital until 3 o'clock, and after that I went to my favorite meadow. The days passed one after the other and the exam approached. Soon new people began to arrive in the village. Shinobi from other villages. I saw the teams of stone, cloud, water, sound, wind. Some villages sent several teams, while others sent one, but probably the strongest. I was especially interested in my brother from Wind Village. I was returning in the evening from training on a new program. It really was much more difficult, and not because it was necessary to perform incredibly difficult, from the physical side, exercises, like throwing logs and rocks. No, it was all about the unnaturalness of the movements. Everything that I did before was exhausting for the body, but, in principle, quite familiar. Right there. I had to stand in racks or perform movements that the body did not perceive as natural. On the contrary, these were unnatural movements for which the human body is not adapted, because of which the load on the muscles, ligaments, and so on is not distributed evenly, but accumulates at one point, loading one muscle beyond all measure, and as you move, this point flows smoothly to another muscle. It hurts terribly. Spasms in this workout visited me more often than sometimes in a few months. I felt my muscles torn, simply unable to withstand such a concentrated load, which is why I fell to the ground and with terrible pain in my arms and legs, stomach or back, on the sides or in the shoulders, or somewhere else. I waited until the muscles and in general tissues regenerate. To do this, I actively drove and let the chakra into this place. The damage went away quickly, but I also felt the pain more vividly. According to the scroll that Togura gave me, ideally, this entire exercise should be done without chakra for 6 hours. When I read this postscript at the end, I realized that I was fucked up, because you don't need to accelerate at all. On the contrary, the slower you do this exercise, the better. It is necessary to stretch the movements for tens of minutes, creating an overload on certain muscles. It is clear that those who are capable of this are very few. Almost not. At least not in Konoha. But in the Uzumaki family there were such real masters of this type of training, which is understandable. The accelerated recovery of my clan allows me to take on the development of such exercises, while ordinary, not the strongest doctors, shinobi will recover for a long time after each attempt of such exercises. Now it becomes clear where this technique came from. Togura, he found the Uzumaki and could acquire this knowledge from them. And so, I returned after the first such training, mentally crushed. No, I was not saddened by the fact that I could not even a quarter, or even a tenth, complete the workout. I could not stand it and fell, starting all over again after doing everything right after only 1 or 2 movements. So after all, it was also necessary to do the right thing, because if you do it wrong, then your body successfully, albeit worse than usual, distributes the load. And in such a crushed state, I walked through the streets of Konoha, felt an incredible thirst for murder, blood, and in general, the strongest negative coming from this source. Involuntarily, I tensed and dispersed the chakra into Kirikukiai, turning towards the source, which had just entered the zone of my empathic perception. I was ready for the attack and the fact that now I have to fight. Among this trio, a small boy stood out in the emotional spectrum with a large capacity, the size of his body, red hair, and considerable amounts of chakra. About 8 times more than Sasuke. At the same time, I felt in him, duality. His emotions are strange. No, everything was normal with the emotions themselves, nothing unusual, but if you listen to the hearth, you feel that these emotions are not his, but, passing through his hearth of emotions, become his. Other people's emotions are perceived as their own. And the source of these initial emotions is interesting. In addition, I felt a similar duality in his chakra, and the second part of the chakra was very poisonous. Not like that second, terrible chakra inside of me, which gets into me through the seal from the monster. This one is much less poisonous, and now I myself can compete with it in terms of. From everything it turned out that this is the same Jinchuriki as me, and from where this team came from, we can conclude that he is a Jinchuriki of a one-tailed bijou. I concentrated on the second source of emotions and, suddenly, as if I failed. I continued to stand on the street, looking at this team, more precisely at the Jinchuriki, but empathically, I stopped feeling anyone other than the bijou that was inside the guy. Only him and no one else. I felt his rage, anger, hatred, all-consuming thirst for death, blood, murder, cruelty. I felt everything that I felt in relation to the village, only orders of magnitude weaker. And I felt that I was also felt. Who are you? Kurama? Is it you, the baster? Roared the one-tailed bijou mentally. I felt and understood his thoughts and feelings. I perceived his thoughts as if we were talking to each other. From the roar of the bijou inside, the guy twitched and froze, his eyes widened, and he began to look around until his eyes met me. You are not Kurama. Who are you? I can feel the chakra of this 9-tailed baster. But you are not he. Who are you? Answer. Answer or I will tear you to pieces and eat all your blood. The Jinchuriki of the one-tailed one looked at me and with each roar of the bijou, he twitched a little, frowned, and the chakra of the one-tailed one began to flow into his Kirikukiai in portions. Feeling some movement in my legs, I looked down and saw how individual grains of sand were moving in the direction of the Jinchuriki, and his own will ceased to dominate in the hearth of emotions, and he was more and more captured by the emotions of the bijou. Without saying anything, without continuing the conflict, I went away from there and quickly broke the distance, stopped empathically perceiving the command of the wind. Except I still felt a connection, albeit an incredibly weak one, with the one-tailed bijou that was locked inside the Jinchuriki. And 7 more similar connections that stretched in different directions. Other bijou? Maybe. The number matches. Well, now I can tell right away if some Jinchuriki is coming over my head or not. I returned to the territory of the Uchiha clan and immediately headed to the training ground. The only training ground that is currently unoccupied, all the rest are now occupied by my permanent clones, which draw chakra from me to practice the techniques of the elements that I have not yet mastered and to improve control over the mastered elements. Plus a small group that trains in blood control. And then, by the way, success began to appear. As I understood a long time ago, seals, first of all, are needed in order to psychologically enclose one or another action of the chakra in one seal, so that after that it is not required to do it consciously, wasting time and attention. On the one hand, this is good, because it allows you to achieve results many times faster, but on the other hand, this is bad, because the Academy does not explain this, it is not written anywhere. Everyone comes to this on their own, but there are few of them. And those who do not reach this point forever remain hostages of these 12 seals. But those who do, sometimes learn something completely new. So, it seems to me that Tobirama, the second Hokage, created the shadow clone technique, using only one seal for such a complex, in fact, chakra construct. Usually they don't think about it, it works and works. But if you still think about it, this is an incredible job from the medical side alone, and everything is done with more or less good skill or talent with one seal, and then without them at all. In other words, if you try, you can easily, relatively, create a new seal that will facilitate my training with blood control and the creation of techniques based on this substance. I want to note that not on the basis of the fluid in the blood, but on the basis of the blood itself. As the clones noticed a week and a half ago, with sufficient concentration and training, blood no longer begins to be perceived as just a liquid, blood becomes like a separate element, a control element that is separated from water, although close. And I have already crossed that line. This made it both easier and more difficult to manage at the same time. The difficulty was that this is a separate element, with whom I don't have much affinity at the moment. It became easier in the sense that earlier I controlled blood like water, a liquid. It wasn't much different from a normal Suiton, it's just much more difficult to control. But now it was a separate element and, roughly speaking, I removed the intermediary and switched to direct work with blood. And with all its functionality. And I created a new seal. 5 clones were meditating almost around the clock with a folded fingertip invented by me and sealing a certain functionality into the image of this seal. It took the clones a week to spend in meditation until the seal became minimally functional. The print looked both simple and funny at the same time. All fingers crossed among themselves in the region of the folds between the last and penultimate phalanges, except for the thumbs, which touched with a pad. It turned out to be a kind of heart sign that lovers draw. I found this funny and at the same time symbolic, since it is the heart that plays a significant role in the life of a shinobi, both as a node for converting chakra into any other in the Kirikukai system, and as an organ that provides blood circulation in the body. And it was precisely on the basis of this hand printing that the first blood printing technique was created, which greatly facilitated training and made it possible to stop running every few hours for a new portion of blood. Ketsueki Jutsu, Mugen Denrui. The clones used this technique on the entire available volume of blood constantly, improving the technique and working it out to a non-printing state. No, I can use it on bare controls, but it's very difficult, since it's not just giving you a command to let the blood go out, it's, in fact, blocking one of the basic functions of blood, clotting and stopping bleeding. This technique simply disables this function and, having received even the slightest scratch, that a shinobi, can simply bleed to death. The only difference is how long they last, and the rate of death from bleeding depends on the wound itself. At the same time, the presence and volume of the chakra will not help here in any way, only a good, very good physician or something like this can save such a patient. Why? Because the technique does not prevent the creation of a blood clot, does not prevent clotting. The technique simply turns off this blood function and that's it. And even if you are a genin, even an ordinary person, even a jonin, there is no difference. Chakra volume speed up natural healing, but what if this natural function is simply disabled? Either survive in an unknown way until the moment when the chakra invested in this technique runs out, which means a long period, because this does not require large expenses, and I do not skimp on chakra, or return this functionality artificially, overcoming the technique, which can do, I think only an A-rank mednin or a very talented B-rank. And even then, definitely not in battle, and it takes some time. Therefore, neither the volume of your chakra, nor weak medical skills, nor pills that speed up regeneration, nor natural regeneration abilities will save you from this technique. This technique simply removes such a function of the body as regeneration. It's hard to tell what rank this technique is, as it's very simple for someone who wields a blood element, but it's also eerily dangerous in one-on-one combat, especially if the wielder is fast and agile. At the only training ground, I began to simply meditate, which has become an important element for me in recent days. I have to put in a lot of effort to not snap right now, and meditation helps me calm down. So every night I meditate and explore myself from within. The recently appeared sense of blood, which works, so far, only inside me, allows me to examine my body with great accuracy, but most of all I was interested in my chakra circulation system. Namely, I was worried that the amount of the nine-tailed chakra in me is now constantly growing. Even now the Biju chakra in me is 1/50th part, and this is a lot. On a permanent basis, any bright bursts of emotions increase the content of this chakra in me, creating strong bursts of this chakra, and as experiments have shown with the maximum increase in the speed of circulation of the chakra, when at the limit of my capabilities the Biju chakra begins to actively flow into me, when 1/3 of the content of the chakra in me Biju, my body starts to mutate. My claws and fangs grow, my pupil changes and much more. But as it turns out, micromutations occur with any content of this chakra, just the rate of change and how far they go depends on its share. To some extent, this chakra makes me stronger, faster, more enduring, tenacious, some pluses, no matter how you look, well, but the fact that with one touch I inflict terrible herbs and burns on any creature, or I can kill, is a trifle, which in most cases can be neglected. The main thing is not to release the chakra, and everything will be fine. But what worries me is that nothing just happens, and I can't understand what the Ninetails are trying to achieve by constantly giving me more and more of their chakra, their strength, in other words. And this worries me a lot. As well as the fact that I absolutely cannot contact him in any way. I have repeatedly lost consciousness in training. When I hit my head, I slept, but not once since that time did I meet with the fox. Yes, and empathically, I can't feel it, which, in general, is normal. I also can't feel myself empathically. I can't get in touch with him at all. I have repeatedly lost consciousness in training. When I hit my head, I slept, but not once since that time did I meet with the fox. Yes, and empathically, I can't feel it, which, in general, is normal. I also can't feel myself empathically. I can't get in touch with him at all. I have repeatedly lost consciousness in training. When I hit my head, I slept, but not once since that time did I meet with the fox. Yes, and empathically, I can't feel it, which, in general, is normal. I also can't feel myself empathically. After finishing my meditation, I went to bed. In a dream, I received data packets from scattered clones, chakra and experience with the skills that they had developed. So the days passed until the exam itself, when we all met with our team at the academy, in which it was supposed to take place. Hey, Naruto. Hinata nodded at me with a smile. Hello, Hinata. I greeted her. Then he rushed closer and grabbed her, hugging her. With exams today, this might be the last or one of the last chances to hug her like this, and I didn't want to miss it. Naruto, stop it. This is very embarrassing. Hinata blushed again and showered me with embarrassment, which I like so much about her. Hello, Hinata. Sasuke nodded to her, smiling slightly, looking at us, although in his emotions he had sadness. Fortunately, not because of my relationship with Hinata, I checked this first of all, but because of something else. Would he find a girl? Just stay away from this viper that is called Konoha. In silence, we proceeded to the entrance to the academy, where there was a huge crowd of people, through which there was no desire to make our way. Let's go, guys. I said, taking Hinata by the hand and leading him away from all this, and Sasuke himself followed us. Remembering which office we needed, I correlated the location of the offices with the windows leading to the corridor. Having found the right corridor from the street, all three of us climbed up the wall without any problems and made our way through the nearest open window. And there were many of them. It was hot outside, it was necessary to blow through the premises. After that, without a jostle, we went to the right office. Even from here we heard the noise and din that came from the floor below. And what are they crowded there, I wonder? The right audience is here. Opening the door, we went inside, where we sat in an unoccupied seat and waited. We didn't have to wait very long, but during this time a lot of teams managed to come up. Including the Wind team with their Jinchuriki. Looking around, he noticed me, then froze for a moment, and then smiled, while his focus of emotions again began to cover the Biju with emotions, which suppressed his will, but the process had just started, so it was still far from the boiling point. I hope so at least. When finally it was time for the exam, everyone was given a piece of paper with questions and the simple rules were explained. We have 10 points, 1 point is deducted for each wrong question. For being seen cheating, he leaves the exam. If someone has 0 points left, he leaves the audience. Everything is simple. There were only 9 questions. After answering a few of them, in which I am completely sure, I completed the answers to the rest, peeping from Hinata, who peeped without a finger with her Byakugan. Everyone around. After writing all the answers, we began to wait. Within 20 minutes, someone was kicked out for copying, someone, like us, finished writing. The easiest, besides us, was Shino with his small bugs, which he used in the manner of a video camera. Let the perception there be different, but it was enough to write off the answers. When the time of the written exam came to an end, everyone around could feel the intense bloodlust that was emitted by the examiner. Except that I, Sasuke, the one-tailed Jinchuriki and a few other guys remained calm. Because in moments of rage and anger, as it was on the bridge in the country of waves, I feel such a thirst for blood and murder that the Jinchuriki of the one-tailed choke, Sasuke often experienced my yaki on himself, because he didn't even scratch himself, with the Jinchuriki of the wind the same as with me. Well, everyone else has their own reasons. The purpose of this exam became clear to me. This is not a test of intelligence, but of determination. At least, that's what I thought when we were offered to leave the exam in exchange for trying in the next exam, or stay, but in case of failure, forever lose the opportunity to become a Chunin. Judging by Hinata's emotions, she was thinking about leaving, but I took her hand and it had an effect. She stayed, which she did not regret, because everyone who stayed went to the next stage. Second phase. What I was waiting for. At the end of the exam, a window suddenly broke and a brunette with long hair, a cloak that covered most of her body, and a t-shirt made of wire that was smelted from chakra-conducting metal flew in. Introducing herself as the next instructor named Enko, she directed everyone to the Forest of Death. This is the name of the training ground, which was once created by the first Hokage, Hashirama Senju. According to the stories, it is a terrible place in which, under the influence of the chakra of the forest, the entire animal population mutated, becoming monsters in less than a century, some of which can even eat Jonin. Fortunately, there are few of them, and they are something like single alpha predators. The Forest of Death also had a quality that was extremely unpleasant for Hugh. It radiated/sprayed its chakra everywhere, which is why the space is clogged with it, and the sensors simply cannot work normally in it. So Hinata's effectiveness as a sensor in the forest will decrease to a level, perhaps when my empathy, expanded by me to the maximum, will be more effective than her Byakugan. We were all gathered in front of a high fence, behind which it was perfectly visible just giant trees that seemed to reach the very sky. And the darkness that hid between these trees evoked eerie associations. For example, I remembered that dream where I met Axel and the nine-tailed fox demon. I don't know what the others have, but, apparently, almost everyone had some not very pleasant associations with this darkness in the forest. Before launching us and generally starting the second stage of the exam, each participant was signed on a document that says that we renounce claims against Konoha, its administration, and generally take full responsibility only in the event of our death or receiving injuries that are not compatible with the future career of a shinobi. None of those who passed to this stage refused and signed the document, after which each team was given a scroll from the Earth-Sky pair set. The goal is to take the twin scroll from the other team. Those who lose a team member or lose a scroll will not be allowed to proceed to the next stage. Here are the rules. Soon everyone dispersed to their entrances to this giant training ground, in the center of which there was a huge tower, where we must reach with both scrolls. So we went to the Forest of Death. When evening came, we gathered to rest on the branch of a large tree. While Hinata sat and rested after all day, Sasuke and I stepped aside and climbed a little higher, where we started this conversation. Hinata could get into big trouble in the clan because she was in a close relationship with you. As far as I know, you didn't go too far, but still she fell in love with you, you love her, no matter how you look, but this knowledge will not have a very good effect on your attitude towards her. Even her own sister can start to treat her badly from this knowledge. Sasuke continued the conversation, but I interrupted him. Bijou take you, Sasuke, you think I don't know that? I thought about it and replayed it in my head not 12 and not 100 times. I understand how they will treat her, but I also understand how they will treat her if one day I break loose and do not restrain myself, rushing to tear apart all these scum that surrounds us. When I get caught and everyone knows about it. Have you thought about it? How will they think about it then? What about you? Oh Shino. This is a lot worse than if I'm just branded a traitor and run away. That way you won't get hurt at all. And I hope to have time to return before something irreparable happens. So stop rubbing salt in my wounds. What are you trying to achieve with these words? To change my mind and stay in the village? You yourself understand that not only will this not happen, it is impossible. Sorry. I didn't want to bring this topic up, especially now, I listened to empathy, checking the area, but did not feel any source of feelings unfamiliar to me. But feeling awkward from Sasuke, come on. Now we have almost the last chance for the nearest bijou knows how long to say anything to each other, because then I will quite possibly die, although this is unlikely, still killing the Jinchuriki means automatically releasing his bijou. So, most likely, I will become a prisoner of war, a deserter, a traitor, and you will no longer be able to say anything to me like this, when there is an opportunity to express any claims without fear that others will hear it. Are you talking about any complaints? Naruto, you're a fucking sharpie. You have huge reserves of chakra, such volumes are not normal for any person. For every shinobi. At your age, and you, big-eyed, have the coolest eyes in the shinobi world. You are a beach genius who, despite all my efforts, not only does not lag behind me, with my chakra reserves, but also constantly strives to overtake me, in which he has considerable success. So, if you remove the factor that I'm a Jinchuriki, then you are much cooler. If it wasn't for the bijou in me, I'd be the way I am. Would be some kind of weakling who only seeks to catch up with you, the great Sasuke Uchiha. Hee hee. Sasuke laughed softly, which made me laugh as well. I'm not that much of a genius. You have your teachers, I also found a teacher. So he taught me something, and not everything I comprehended exclusively by myself. Oppa. Why didn't you tell me before? I asked Sasuke, because I really did not even suspect that Sasuke had a teacher. He's not the most pleasant person, despite the fact that he teaches well, as a person he is, in fact, terrible. But I endure. He promised to soon begin full-fledged training in everything that a professional shinobi should know. Earlier he only pulled me up in tie all the time. Why didn't you start earlier? I asked. He said that I would have to complete a task. Individual. As a test of my qualities. And only after that he will be able to recognize me as a full-fledged student. What job didn't he say? He said, but he told not to tell anyone, secret information. But I'll tell you, he ordered me to kill someone soon. Not in battle, but covertly, so that he could not resist. He said that he would monitor the execution of the assignment and, as a result, decide whether to accept me as a student or not. As he said this, his emotions washed over the area with feelings of anguish, indecision, unwillingness to complete the task. Perhaps I could understand him if I experienced at least something during the murder. But this does not touch me at all, but, as far as I know psychology, for the rest this action is quite difficult, and even more difficult for teenagers. Their psyche is softer, which makes it, although more malleable, but at the same time much more easily deformable. It's only natural that Sasuke doesn't want to do this. He didn't kill anyone on the bridge. Then I took everyone for myself, and even if I had killed, it would have been a fight, either you or you. Immediately he is offered to kill quietly, when they do not even suspect about him. On the one hand, this is good, as it can prepare Sasuke for much more bloody and cruel things. On the other hand, it can greatly deform his personality, and who knows how it will affect the stability of his psyche. The one who gave him this task is definitely well versed in psychology. That's how. You know, being a teacher is rare, but very useful. If he's really good at teaching, then, you're a shinobi. Not in the future, but now, so you must be able to not only fight and kill enemies in battle, but also strike from the shadows, from behind. Such is the life of a shinobi. Everyone will die someday. So don't hesitate when it comes to execution. Bay, and leave everything else for later. For a while after that mission of yours is over. Hey, can you hear me? I turned to Sasuke. He apparently from my words internally completely limp. You can't notice it outwardly, but I felt emotionally that he was almost killed by the mission ahead of him, and even immediately after this exam ends, and after all, with my escape, I will provide Sasuke with many problems, no matter how he suffers for me. The sun was setting and soon went completely below the horizon, leaving only a streak of light that barely illuminated the sky. Although it was no longer noticeable through the trees, and there was total darkness, we went down to Hinata. She sat with her face buried in her knees, so that it might have seemed that she was sleeping, but I felt that she was not sleeping. She is crying. With a jerk, involuntarily speeding up the chakra several times, I found myself next to her and immediately hugged her, stretching my empathy to the full extent, trying to find at least someone new foci, except for Hinata and Sasuke. But I did not find anyone, so I returned to Hinata with all my attention, stroked her head to calm her down a little, and began to broadcast my most positive and best feelings when touched, which were sent to her. "Hey Hinata, what's wrong? There's no one, everything's fine, calm down." I spoke quietly, trying to calm and balance her emotions so that she would not start hysterical for no reason. "Don't leave," Hinata whispered, causing me and Sasuke to freeze as if struck by thunder. "She knows." "Where?" Sasuke didn't tell her. He's just as surprised and confused as I am, so he's expelled, and no one else could tell. "How?" I began to ask a question, but she answered before I asked. "I learned to read lips," she said, and it gave a complete answer. Byakugan, plus lip reading allows you to get the information you need. "I'm sorry," I said deadly, because I simply could not say otherwise. What else was there for me to say? "Just don't leave, please." She almost screamed as she looked at me. I felt all her emotions directed at me. "Hinata, I can't stay in Konoha. If I stay, I will eventually break down and go kill everyone in the streets of Konoha until I myself get killed by stronger shinobi. And you, Sasuke, Shino, after that you will receive such a reputation that there is nowhere worse. I don't want this for you. Do you hear me? I don't want you to get hurt in Konoha because of me. And then, if you wait, I promise, stronger, I'll be back. I will come back for you, Sasuke, Shino, and I will also take revenge on all those traitors that live in Konoha. Just please, just wait, okay? I will definitely be back. But I beg you, understand me, I don't want to harm you, I don't want to hurt you or do something bad. I only wish you all the best." Hinata was hysterical again, but I stabilized her feelings with all my strength, actively projecting my attitude towards her. "Hinata, I'm sorry, I really didn't mean to upset you, but I couldn't stay." "Not now, why?" Tears flowed from Hinata's white eyes. She looked at me in the hope that I would change my mind and stay, but... "I'm sorry, Hinata. Just understand. I already told you. Not everything, but this part is the main one. I love you, Hinata." "Sorry." Quickly approaching, I kissed Hinata and then turned to Sasuke. "I beg you, take care of Hinata and don't let her get hurt, just like Shino." "I swear." Sasuke nodded, and the pain inside him only got stronger. Without saying anything else, I jumped to the next branch, then again and again, accelerating the chakra to the maximum, until I was at the border of duality. At maximum speed, I moved along the upper paths to the border of the forest of death. For 3 kilometers everything went well, but after that I felt 3 chakra pockets. These were formed and fully established foci, moreover, strongly suppressed, which suggests that they were definitely not participants. These are the same shinobi as my observers, with the same muted emotions. I tried to move to the side, but very soon the meeting people turned after me. Half a minute of running passed, and I quite successfully broke away, which indicates my superiority in speed, but I felt new pockets of emotions. Another trio. Change course again. And soon I realized that I was surrounded. 6 triplets. All adult shinobi. I stopped and took out my Kobikurabocho from behind my back, preparing to attack and disperse the chakra to the maximum without crossing the border of duality. A kunai flew out of the leaves at me. First, second, third. I jumped to the side, immediately sending a dozen water shurikens in that direction. 18 shinobi jumped out of the foliage. Someone remained on the branches of the tree, and 4 landed in the clearing next to me. To hell with words. I create 20 clones next to the failure, which immediately distribute opponents, and each one sends a swarm of water shurikens to the enemy, and we actively mix so that they lose me, the original, among the clones, after which we attack them. I jerked closer, but I didn't strike with the sword, but ducked and slipped under the blade of the masked shinobi. At the same time, my clone struck. In theory, this was supposed to create the effect that I am a clone, and a clone is the original. At least that's how it should seem to my opponent. And, apparently, it seemed so to him, so that when he was able to deflect the clone's blade with a heavily chakra-saturated blow, and then pierced the clone itself with the blade, which set itself up and gave me an extra second, while I turned on my heel and from around Maha slashed with his cleaver, which was nourished by me with the wind, in the lumbar region. The blade did not even notice the enemy's flesh and cut it into 2 parts, while the upper part was finished off by another clone with a thrown water shuriken. At the same time, 3 more who came died an unnatural death, at the cost of 8 clones. But I wasn't going to stop there, and after stopping for a moment, I stuck my sword into the ground, sealed my concentration for full strength, used the Great Flame Breath technique, sending out fire in all directions, setting fire to all the surrounding trees. While everything around is flooded with bright flames, I put another seal, the seal of cloning, and create 1,500 clones, after which each of us, having formed a tight circle, creates the technique of the Great Fire Breath and releases it in our direction. Thus, by creating a powerful and very hot ring of fire, I bought even more time and used the technique that the clones that practiced the elements of the earth, underground movement. 2 seals, and I plunge underground, after which I start to leave in the old direction, while the clones began to actively use techniques, taking out masked shinobi, which became much more, while already the first batch of 12 shinobi they volleyed their fried. In this underground way, I moved half a kilometer, while the number of my clones was already reduced by half due to the arrived maskers. This is not an oooO, as far as I know from Sasuke, they are recruited mainly from clans, but the training of these shinobi shows that they are definitely not clans, and the chakra volumes seem to hint at this. This is most likely the same route that Sasuke mentioned. But I did not remain in debt and killed almost 40 shinobi. 5 minutes later, the last clone was destroyed, and I felt a sudden danger, and instinctively jumped out of the ground. At the same moment, electrical discharges went through the ground, from which I jumped back and stuck to the tree. 5 minutes later, the last clone was destroyed, and I felt a sudden danger, and instinctively jumped out of the ground. At the same moment, electrical discharges went through the ground, from which I jumped back and stuck to the tree. 5 minutes later, the last clone was destroyed, and I felt a sudden danger, and instinctively jumped out of the ground. At the same moment, electrical discharges went through the ground, from which I jumped back and stuck to the tree. There were 3 shinobi in front of me. 2 of them were wearing masks. I immediately recognized one of these maskers, my taijutsu teacher. I did not know the second, and it was he who launched an electric discharge into the ground. The third shinobi was the strangest. An old man with a crossed scar on his chin, a wide bandage that covers part of his face and one of his eyes, short hair, a public kimono, a cane in one hand and a bandaged second hand. However, something told me that he was the most dangerous. They began to surround me. Those roots again. Judging by the hearths, there were 22 of them, but the chakra sense said that these were the strongest. Ready, I bristled with the weapon, accelerating the chakra to a state of duality, and starting to feel intense pain, I continued to accelerate the flow and increase all my parameters at times. In one hand I took Kubikurabocho, in the other one of the previously untouched kunai. I prepared to use everything in my arsenal, all my techniques, all my chakra, which I have almost more than all those gathered together. Listening to empathy, I began to read the intentions of those present. This crippled old man did not allow reading his intentions, it's the same crap as with Hiruzen. The others intended to follow the orders of this old man. Reckless fools. As I prepared to break loose, I suddenly felt a rapidly approaching source of emotion. Familiar source. What are you doing here? What about Hinata? I asked quietly through my teeth at Sasuke, who appeared next to him. She's fine. And I came here to help. Help. Help is good, help will definitely not hurt me. It hurts a lot of them here, one cannot cope. But still, you came in vain, we can both die here. And now we both become traitors. Not what I wanted, Sasuke. Preparing to attack, I controlled the moisture around me with direct control, intending to use everything. Naruto, remember what I said about the mission. You were my mission. I heard from Sasuke, and on instinct and empathy alone, I was able to react faster than my mind could understand what he said. It did not help to the end and only managed to move to the side, and instead of the heart, where Sasuke seemed to be aiming, he hit me in the right lung, breaking through it, after which he jumped to another branch away, leaving the kunai in me. Cats. Everything was swallowed up by the explosion. A strong blow to the head was the first thing I felt after that. I think I fell to the ground from a tree. But survived. The chakra kept me alive and conscious, repairing damage, and parts of my body. Unexpectedly, I noticed, I still felt as good as when I studied my body. As I reached out to them, I could feel them getting closer to me. The blood was especially well felt, but it was also in the flesh. Almost unconsciously, I reached for my parts, and at the same time I felt how the Biju chakra began to enter my Kirikuki at an accelerated pace, forcing my body and chakra circulation system to recover. You could probably see me regenerate restore integrity and grow new flesh, while emitting a huge amount of poisonous Biju chakra. The proportion of chakra became more than 30%, and my body, along with regeneration, began to mutate. The amount of Biju chakra kept growing, and soon I was covered with this chakra. But then I felt like I was pierced by a sword blade. I shift my gaze to the source of the pain and see a katana blade. Familiar. Katana Sasuke. I shift my gaze upward. I'm right, it's Sasuke, and you too? I asked, even though it hurts to even breathe, let alone speak, to Sasuke, while several roots surrounded me and began to make seals, doing something. I'm sorry, Naruto. You were wrong. I am the same as my brother. He destroyed the clan, for the sake of the village. I killed my friend to prevent your betrayal and escape. I saw Sasuke right in front of me. I felt the familiar feeling of pain and suffering, regret and sadness. My eyes widened in surprise. So all this, time, you. Yes. Sasuke's eyes filled with tears, causing him to close them. Why didn't you think that I would turn out to be a traitor? Why? I felt the Biju chakra completely fill my Kirakuki and completely mix with mine, and now it began to fill the chakra focus. I felt the Biju chakra, as if under pressure, go to where the chakra comes from, where it is formed from. I felt the amount of chakra continue to rise. The chakra covering me was dark red before, but now it is rapidly darkening, because, believed. I trusted you more than everyone else, creature. I perceived you as the most faithful friend. The chakra covering me finally stabilized the color scheme, becoming dark purple with a red tint. She continued to penetrate the hearth and now somehow changed it. I'm sorry, please forgive Naruto. Soon you. Sasuke yelled at the shinobi who were sealing the seals around me. Almost finished. One of them answered. So you betrayed me. I couldn't let you betray the village, Naruto. I tried to stop you with words, but you were categorical. I couldn't do anything, only this remained. Sasuke finished speaking in a fading voice. Sasuke, I understand, I said after a few seconds, when I thought it over, but very quietly, and Sasuke moved closer to hear what I was saying. I hate you. And at the same moment, he hit Sasuke with his empathy, with all the hatred, all the bad that was in me. Everything I felt for this traitor. All the rage. All desire to break it. Kill. Destroy. Sasuke recoiled. You're no better than all these scum. I despise you, I hate you. I swear on my soul, I will get out of the stomach of the Shinigami himself, but I will get to you and all of Konoha. I will destroy all of you. I will destroy you all. Sasuke closed his eyes again as tears welled up. Only now these tears were bloody. A few seconds later, Sasuke opened his eyes with a different look. It wasn't just the eyes or even the Sharingan. This is what was written in the historical chronicles of the Uchiha clan, which Sasuke gave me to read freely. Majikyo Sharingan. But finally, voices and shinobi surrounding me. They used some technique, but nothing happened. Danzo-sama, we don't know why, but the seal didn't work. Biju in Uzumaki Naruto, as if not. There is simply no one to reprint. Only now I was able to feel the one into whom they wanted to reprint the bija from me. Some kind of baby. But they couldn't reprint the bija from me into him. Cause. I have no idea, but I'm better off. Then take a breath. I didn't say in vain that the heart of a shinobi is one of the most important organs, even in terms of chakra. It contains a node for converting chakra into elemental. It is the heart that transforms chakra into elements. At the level of the chakra system, of course. And while the heart has many possibilities, unfortunately, most of these functions are deadly. Disposable, but very powerful. And I decided to use one of these tricks. It takes some time in the heart, without movement, to accumulate chakra, after which it is all at once transformed into one element and instantly compressed into one point, and then released. Best suited for such elements are wind, fire and lightning. I chose fire as the most well mastered of these elements. All this time I have been accumulating chakra in my heart. Huge forces at one point instantly transformed into fire. Outwardly, it looked very nice. My heart burned instantly and the glow of fire passed through the ribs and skin with muscles. A few seconds of delay before the explosion, during which I managed to notice that the old man jumped up to Sasuke and grabbed him, applied Shunshin, disappearing somewhere. 5 others reacted similarly. The rest did not understand what was happening, and were instantly absorbed by the wave of the strongest explosion. Commentary on Part 39. Epilogue. A festive volume in honor of the holiday and 700 rubles thrown off to me. Thank you. Yes, you. You know what I'm talking about, you. End of the first part. https://img3.goodfon.ru/wallpaper/nbig/1/6/7/art-azu-naruto-naruto.jpg. Beta call. Phew, everything, if I missed something, write specifically. With you was Diamond, yet. It was interesting to beat this work, thanks to the author for the work. See you all again. Nimanial. I got down to business a bit late, but at least I increased the readability a little. I'll be back. Sleeping Cat.